Good morning, 5 o'clock now. I'm Joan Jones with your top stories, and weather is going to be an issue for us in the Nashville area today for a couple of different reasons.
All the way through Wednesday, high wind gusts of 30 to 40 miles per hour. We very well could see some areas with wind gusts up to 50 miles per hour as we go through today. Strong thunderstorms will then also move in late today into the early part of tonight.
Now, Channel 4 Stefano DiPietro telling us those strong thunderstorms have a 1 out of 5 chance that they'll become severe or perhaps spawn a tornado. 2 people are now facing charges in connection to a jet ski crash in July on Old Hickory Lake that killed a 10-year-old boy. Jack Gear was attending Boy Scout camp at the time. Channel 4's Alexandria Adams.
According to the Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency, Jack was on the back of the jet ski at the time, driven by a 19-year-old staff member. They crashed into another jet ski. Both Jack and the 19-year-old were seriously hurt, but Jack later died at the hospital. Police have not said if the 19-year-old is the same person that's facing charges in this case.
Joshua Kennington and Savannah Remington were indicted by a grand jury. They've been released from jail on bond. President Trump's 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico went into effect at midnight, and China was hit with a 20% tariff on its imports to the United States, too.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford now threatening to shut off electricity to American homes near the border who rely on Canadian power. But Trump says the tariffs are needed. He says the U.S. is getting ripped off by bad trade deals that cost American jobs. And he claims Canada and Mexico aren't doing enough to stop illegal immigration and fentanyl shipments. Less than 1% of the fentanyl in the U.S. comes across the Canadian border.
ABC's Andrew Dimbert reporting. Dan is speaking with the E.J. Antoni, an economist with the Heritage Foundation, about these tariffs. That'll be at 8:06 this morning. President Trump also pausing all U.S. military aid to Ukraine, saying the U.S. is reviewing our aid to ensure that it's contributing to a solution to the war with Russia. Market numbers brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com. Here's Michelle Franzen.
Major market indexes tumbled in the first day of trading after February's losses. The Dow was down 650 points at closing. The S&P fell 105 points, and the Nasdaq lost 497 points. Stocks fell after President Trump announced 25% tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada will go into effect on Tuesday. President Trump also announced levies on Chinese products will double to 20% Tuesday. He claims that the tariffs are aimed at reducing the flow of illicit drugs into the U.S. The president told American farmers they should get ready to sell agricultural products domestically, as his tariffs on external products are scheduled to begin April 2nd. Yields also fell in the bond market over concerns about the strength of the U.S. economy. The world's biggest semiconductor maker, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing, plans to invest an additional $100 billion in the United States. Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
And stock futures this morning are mixed. We've got the Dow futures down 24, NASDAQ futures up 5, and the S&P futures are minus 3 points. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News. Well, looks like things are moving well on the major roadways heading into Nashville this morning. However, on my drive-in, there were a lot of roving pothole crews that were fixing signs this morning. So be aware that those crews may be out there. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.506, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to you, friends. How are you? Welcome on in to your Tuesday, March 4th. Hope you're doing well. Let's see here. So I want to make sure that I've got the news cycle straight today. We're pausing aid to Ukraine, and we're starting the tariffs today. So a lot of news going on, and I want to jump right into Donald Trump, the president, pausing that aid to Ukraine. Heads are exploding all over the place. Let's get into this. You know, Zelensky only has himself to blame. Now, we all knew this was coming. Trump pausing all aid to Ukraine, billions and billions of dollars. Now, this is the next step in hopefully stopping the war. This was Donald Trump yesterday going scorched earth on Vladimir Zelensky, of course, the president of Ukraine.
Everybody has to get into a room, so to speak, and we have to make a deal. And the deal can be made very fast. It should not be that hard a deal to make. It can be made very fast. Now, maybe somebody doesn't want to make a deal. And if somebody doesn't want to make a deal, I think that person won't be around very long. That person will not be listened to very long because I believe that Russia wants to make a deal. I believe certainly the people of Ukraine want to make a deal. They've suffered more than anybody else.
Right. And Trump, you got to understand that sometimes drastic situations call for drastic measures, and this is what the president is trying to do. He basically is trying to get Zelensky to admit, listen, there really is no end to this war. There really is no way to end this war unless we go to the table. We make concessions. You make concessions. You get to the table with Vladimir Putin and you agree that there has to be a mutually acceptable solution to all of this. And so many people, of course, so predictable on the left, right? They're saying that Donald Trump is bending the knee to Russia, right? Well, he's not. And this is not bending the knee to Russia. It is bending the knee to America and to the world and trying to get peace. Now, by pulling the aid, Donald Trump is, again, trying to force Zelensky to the table, to make those concessions, to tone down the rhetoric and try to save lives. Now, to be honest, I don't know about you, but I don't believe that Donald Trump likes pulling the funding, pausing the funding, because he knows that ultimately it could result in more death on Ukraine's side. But listen, the war does need to end. I mean, that is absolutely no doubt.
President Zelensky supposedly made a statement today in AP. I'm not a big fan of AP, so maybe it was an incorrect statement, but he said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time. And he better not be right about that. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, that was Donald Trump talking about what triggered this whole thing. As a matter of fact, the top of the Daily Mail this morning, just a few minutes ago, I took a look at it, and this is their version of the story. The comment that drove Donald Trump, that inspired Donald Trump to pause Ukraine funding. And so there is a meme out there. This is something that Donald Trump posted, and it says, World News, Ukraine's Zelensky says end of war with Russia is very, very far away. And again, that quote is attributed to the Associated Press. So Trump posts this in reaction. This is the worst statement that could have been made by Zelensky, and America will not put up with it for much longer. He says, it is what I was saying. This guy, Zelensky, this guy doesn't want there to be peace as long as he has American backing. And Europe, in the meeting they had with Zelensky, stated fealty that they cannot do the job without the U.S. Probably not a great statement to have been made in terms of a show of strength against Russia. What are they thinking? And yeah, Donald Trump is right. Remember the audio from Sturmer, the UK. Here it is. So the UK Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, this is what he said.
The UK is prepared to back this with boots on the ground and planes in the air. Together with others, Europe must do the heavy lifting. But to support peace in our continent and to succeed, this effort must have strong U.S. backing.
All right, so that's what Trump is referring to. Now, here's the thing. It's time for, with Trump doing this, it is time for Europe and the UK to put up or shut up. Now is your time to show your allegiance to Ukraine. Also, what is the move of Vladimir Putin? What is he going to do? Will he strike harder, knowing that pretty soon Ukraine is going to be way outgunned? And by the way, the administration pausing, this is a pause, not a permanent decision. And the Trump presidency and Donald Trump want signs that Ukraine and Zelensky actually wants peace. And so really what this is the ball is in Zelensky's court. Trump, I believe he wants an apology. That's number one. And number two, he wants some signs. He wants an acknowledgement that Zelensky wants peace. Because every time you turn around, he is amping up the rhetoric against Vladimir Putin. He will say, well, this war is a long, long way from being over. That's not how you end the war. That is not how you end the killing. That is not how you find a solution. And you know what the other thing is? Zelensky, everybody's accusing Donald Trump of mixed signals. Do you know who's sending mixed signals? It's Zelensky. Because on the one hand, Zelensky is saying that he is ready to sign the minerals deal, and Trump doesn't seem to have responded to that. But Zelensky says he's ready to sign the minerals deal, and part of that, of course, the ultimate goal is peace. Well, if he's ready to sign the minerals deal, well, then why are you poisoning the waters by saying that this war is a long, long way from being over? So I think that Zelensky is like a cornered animal, and I think he feels like, the walls are closing in. And so, again, oh so predictably, the Democrats and some Republicans freaking out on all this. J.D. Vance had a great interview last night with Sean Hannity. We're going to play some of that audio for you as well. Really looking forward to that. By the way, we've got Matthew Hurt. He's going to join us at 6:38. Brian Wilson, 7:38 as well. And also, you heard Joan in her newscast talking about EJ and Tony. It is Tariffs Tuesday across America, and that means that, of course, tariffs. Donald Trump now implementing those tariffs on Canada, Mexico, China as well. There's a lot of freak out going on right now. The markets tanked yesterday at the end of the day when Trump came out and he said that he was going to start implementing those tariffs for real today. And so the markets are reacting, people are reacting, and the ultimate question is, how will this impact the markets? So all of this and a whole lot more. By the way, there's also Trump is giving his, in effect, his State of the Union tonight as well. That is also a big topic of conversation. Remember, tonight it is the big event out at the Nashville Palace. Matt, his barber, Chris, Brian, Chad, Joan, Ken, KGB is going to be there. Everybody's going to be there, Joan.
Maybe the barber wouldn't mind trimming my hair as well.
You know what? Maybe, can I be honest? I think KGB is looking a little raggedy.
Oh, yeah.
KGB, we got the barber there. You want to go ahead and...
I would legitimately be okay with that. It's just a trim, though. I'm not taking a lot off. I'm literally just a trim and cleanup would be great.
Okay. Well, Joan, KGB has that high forehead like I used to have in my 20s.
He's headed your way. Yep.
Yeah, he is. KGB, I just want you to know that you get used to this, pal. You've got that hairline.
The glorious shine.
I'll never
on your
forget.
head.
I'll never forget the day that somebody who had my haircut currently actually said to me, I was in my, by the way, I'm kidding, KGB. Somebody said to me, yeah, you've got the headline. You've got the hairline. And
the headline?
Headline, whatever. You've got the hairline. And he said, because I was making, this is what's funny. I can't do this now. We'll do this at 5:35. When I rue the day that I made fun of a bald guy back in my 20s. 5:15, time to check the roads on WTN.
A little bit of slowing on 40 now as you're approaching the Nashville area, approaching the Loop area this morning. No problems, though, on 24, and 65 is looking good so far heading in. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, as far as your weather, a high of 66 today, high winds, some rain as well. Great day, Joan, to have a radio event.
Oh, yes, it's a lovely day for that.
So if you want to come out, we'll be at the Nashville Palace. Basically, I think most of the staff, it sounds like they're going to be there. So come on out. We're going to have a great time. Tickets are still available. I don't think we're going to sell out, which is fine. There's a big thing going on in Williamson County. We spoke about at great length yesterday. That conversation, by the way, does continue. If you want to watch the radio show, throw us a bone and do so. Go to YouTube and watch us there. That is how I prefer folks to watch YouTube. But if you're stuck on Facebook, X, 997WTN.com. We stream the show, whether it is video, whether it is audio. Check out the podcast after the show as well. Take the Daily Dan poll today. And I'm really curious as to how you folks feel about the Daily Dan poll today. What is your answer? Primaries versus caucus. This after the big debate continues in Williamson County. One group wants to stay with primaries. Another group is being accused of wanting to switch to a caucus format as they look to pick their leaders and candidates and so forth. So I'm really interested to know what you think. What is your preference, primaries versus a caucus format? Your lovable host was roundly attacked yesterday, and I still feel a little bruised and battered from all the... You know what's interesting, though, Joan, is I got a lot of love and a lot of hatred yesterday. We're going to talk about that as well straight ahead. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So, yes, it is Tariff Tuesday. We're going to get into that after the news at 6 o'clock. But it is also the day that Donald Trump has decided now to, sounds like temporarily, he is going to pause funding to Ukraine. And J.D. Vance was on with Sean Hannity last night, and he said, listen, at some point, somebody has to come to the table with a solution.
And here's the thing, when you would talk to the Biden administration officials in private, this is another example of a terrible situation the Biden admin left the Trump administration. When you ask them what's the plan, okay, we're going to spend tens of billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars in Ukraine. What is your plan? And they would honestly tell you, well, we're just going to send them weapons for as long as we can and hope eventually they can turn the tide. Hope is not a strategy. Throwing money and ammunition at a terrible conflict, that is not a strategy.
Well, obviously he's right. I can't tell you how many times I had Senator Bill Hagerty on, Marsha Blackburn, all the various Congress people here from Middle Tennessee, and they all said the same thing, which is there's no end game. What is the end game? Hope is not a strategy, as J.D. Vance said, and neither is a blank check. We've sent anywhere between $175 and $300 billion. Depends on who you ask. Trump will say it's $350 billion. Others will say it's $175. Whatever. It's a heck of a lot of money. But the bottom line is that giving this much money when there is no plan isn't a very good plan. Now, remember what Donald Trump wanted to do. He wanted to sign the minerals deal, have America invest in Ukraine, and ultimately for the president that would serve as sort of a de facto security agreement because we would be invested in Ukraine. And so that's where we will pick up the conversation coming up here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. By the way, the Super Text line is open as well, 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. And as I said, a very busy morning. And hit us up on the super text line, 615-737-9986. Joan Jones has the news coming up at 5:30. Joan, what's coming up?
High winds, heavy thunderstorms. We'll tell you what's in store for Middle Tennessee today and when we can expect it. Also, Dolly Parton is mourning the death of her husband of more than 60 years. Those stories coming up at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
526, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So it's a very big day politically, not only here in Middle Tennessee with what is going on in Williamson County. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But also nationally and on the world stage, because it's Tariff Tuesday. So today is the day that Canada and Mexico, China, of course, facing their tariffs. The markets, they reacted yesterday and not in a positive way. And so we'll get into the more nuanced part of that monologue coming up in the 6 o'clock hour. But you've got Donald Trump's surrogates out there, people from his campaign. And yesterday they were all saying, well, this is all part of the negotiation. Well, if it was all part of the negotiation, would they come out and actually say that it was part of the negotiation? Like, think about it. If you're negotiating with somebody, do you say, well, this is part of my negotiation? Or you just say, this is what I'm doing. You tell me your move. You know what I mean? So we'll talk about that in the 6 o'clock hour. Also, E.J. Antoni, he's going to be joining us at 8:06 here at Nashville's Morning News. He is an analyst, financial analyst for Fox News and also for the Heritage Foundation. Looking forward to that. So real quick, and wrapping up this audio from J.D. Vance, a great appearance yesterday on Sean Hannity's show last night, because you do have, of course, people have been freaking out. Literally the world has been freaking out about the battle between Zelensky, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, J.D. Vance, Donald Trump as well. And, you know, one of the things that he has been saying as Trump decides to pause the funding, and he's reacting to Zelensky, where Zelensky came out and he said this war between Russia and Ukraine, the end of this war is a long, long way off. And that really angered Donald Trump. And so one of the things that's out there is the minerals deal. Now, Zelensky has said, I will sign the minerals deal. Trump, I guess, I don't know if he hasn't responded or they're communicating behind the scenes, but about that mineral deal, have America invest in Ukraine. That's what needs to happen. If Zelensky signs the minerals deal, that would serve basically as a backstop for any kind of threats from Russia, because, of course, if we're partners with Ukraine for the minerals, then we would obviously protect that investment.
The only guy in town with a strategy is the President of the United States, and everybody needs to follow his lead. And this is an important part of it. The President knows that, look, if you want real security guarantees, if you want to actually ensure that Vladimir Putin does not invade Ukraine again, the very best security guarantee is to give Americans economic upside in the future of Ukraine. That is a way better security guarantee than 20,000 troops from some random country that hasn't fought a war in 30 or 40 years. The security guarantee and also the economic guarantee for Ukraine is to rebuild the country and ensure that America has a long-term interest.
Yeah, and the problem is that it is unclear, they say, what Trump wants and what the purpose of the action is. So says Ukrainian lawmakers and chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee. I've got a lot more on this. A very big day, again, politically, whether we're talking about nationally, locally, across the world as well. So we've got it all for you here. It is, again, Tuesday, March 4th. Don't forget the event tonight out at the Nashville Palace. Details and tickets available, 997WTN.com. It is 5:30, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
Well, good morning. It's now 5:30. I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. Get ready to deal with some high winds today, 30 to 40 miles per hour or more. And that'll blow around your trash cans and patio furniture. Then tonight, we'll be dealing with some heavy thunderstorms with a low threat that they'll turn severe. Here's Channel 4's Stefano DiPietro.
This severe threat has expanded to include much more of Middle Tennessee and southern Kentucky. Mostly a low-end threat, 1 out of 5 on that scale as we get closer to the Tennessee and Alabama border, though the severe threat does go up a little bit, a 2 out of 5 on the scale. Heavy rain and additional high wind gusts are the main concerns. Tornado threat is low, but not necessarily zero.
And tomorrow, it's another day of high winds, too. President Trump is heading to Capitol Hill tonight to address a joint session of Congress. The president expected to recap what his administration has done so far to start this second term.
There's been so much that's happened in the last 7 weeks or so that I think people are still kind of recalibrating what their expectations are. And in fact, a lot of people are just kind of dizzy from the impact. Trump 2.0 feels and looks and actually is much, much different than the first time around. And I think we'll see that on display tonight in the House chamber.
ABC's Rick Klein there. Now, we hope to see you out at the Nashville Palace tonight for the WTN watch party. That starts at 6 o'clock. Dolly Parton is mourning the loss of her husband, Carl Dean, that couple together for 6 decades.
The country legend saying, "Carl and I spent many wonderful years together. Words can't do justice to the love we shared for over 60 years. The couple met outside a laundromat in 1964 on Dolly's first day in Nashville. She was just 18. Despite her fame, the couple kept their relationship out of the spotlight. Dean was a private man, a businessman who never attended her public events."
ABC's Rhiannon Alley. Carl Dean was 82 years old. That is the latest news, traffic, and weather are next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News. Got a problem this morning on the 24 westbound off-ramp to I-40 westbound. That's exit 52A and B. The off-ramp left shoulder is blocked off by this crash. Careful around that this morning. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
536, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk, 89.7 WTN. Good morning to you, friends. How are you? Along with Joan Jones and KGB is here. KGB, you have a fan on the Super Text line.
Oh, wow.
Yay. At least I have one.
Somebody says, Dan, don't be so harsh on KGB. We love KGB.
Yeah.
There's one person, though.
He's very rude to me off the air, for the record.
Oh, I am not. Shut up. What, I did just tell you to shut up.
Yeah, I mean, that's a hostile work environment.
I've been very nice to you. Let's be honest.
I mean,
usually.
You know, it's funny. You did give me this job. So
I did. I hired you.
I remember when you called me, too. I was in my car in the parking lot of my apartment. I was like kind of down because I was getting out of a job. And you called me and goes, Jeff, is this Jeff Malinoff? It's like, yes, sir. And you just went, I see your resume here, and I'm just interested in this. Can we talk more about this? And I'm just like, yeah. I mean, it almost like you almost gave me the job right there, it felt like. I just went in there, and you're like, we talked for 5 minutes, and then.
I go by gut. Like, I really do. Like, when you hire somebody, Joan, I don't know if you've ever been in charge of, hiring people. And by the way, I never, ever, ever, ever want to be in charge of anybody ever again in my entire life.
Fair.
But that being said, yeah, when you hire people, sometimes you have a gut feeling about them. And sometimes that feeling is good. Sometimes there's a feeling where, I'm not sure this is the right person for the job. So, but you know what? I had a feeling about you, and you've obviously done well.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. It's very good. Now, real quick, that whole Williamson County thing from yesterday.
Yeah.
I was reminded yesterday why I don't like to wade into local inter-party politics if you're a conservative. Because, oh my Lord.
Really?
Oh my gosh. I received so much, I'm going to air quote this. I received so much feedback that
I feel like feedback is a code
It's
word.
a polite word to describe
Yeah.
it.
Yep. I got people so mad at me, and I also got a lot of love. Now, in case you missed it, basically what's going on in Williamson County, there's a big meeting tonight, and they're trying to decide who will ultimately be the lead the party in Williamson County. And so they're electing chairman and all that other kind of stuff. And there's two different slates of candidates. One wants primaries, and I spoke to the guy who wants primaries yesterday. And there's another group that supposedly wants caucuses. Now, nowhere can I find that they have officially said that they want caucuses. But there's been a couple of Facebook posts from people that are affiliated with their group that does say that, they want caucuses. And so but here's the good news. The good news, number one, I went back and I listened because, the people that are affiliated with the supposedly pro-caucus group, Gary Humble's crowd, by the way. And I like Gary Humble. I don't want to sit here and throw stones at anybody. But they're very passionate, which is fine. I love passion in politics. But I heard from them, and they said that I was unfair to elevate this supposedly pro-caucus group. And they said that I was unfair to elevate during the interview that I had with their opponent. So I went back and I actually listened to the interview, which I never do. Like, I don't like to listen to anything that I do. But it was a fine interview. Like I actually was very fair. My only gripe, and by the way, there might be a very reasonable reason why elevate if they want caucuses. Might be a very good reason why they want caucuses. For example, and we talked about this yesterday, there is a very real problem in Williamson County of Democrats coming and voting in the Republican primaries. It's Operation Chaos, like Rush Limbaugh advocated for many, 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 many years ago. So, I mean, it's a legit conversation to have. My biggest problem with Elevate was that they wouldn't do any media interviews. They wouldn't come on with me. They wouldn't come on with anybody here on WTN. They wouldn't answer any questions from Channel 5. And that was my big issue. Well, they're going to come on the show. And I'm not entirely certain what time because I got the notice late. Well, for me, late last night, which is like 5 o'clock. But I was drifting. I had my melatonin. I'm drifting into sleep. And then I get a notice. We had to go through like a third party a third-party person was able to get the candidate for Elevate on with me today. So I'm trying to figure out where in the world I'm going to place this guy, because I do want to give him a fair shake, because I want to know, yes or no. Are you supportive of caucuses? Now, Joan, you were going to say something?
Oh, no. I'm listening intently to you.
Oh, I'm sure you are.
And
so
I'll defend you, though. You were not harsh on them. You were harsh on them not being transparent.
yeah, that's the issue. But my big deal is transparency, and so I'm really glad that they're going to come on. And so the big debate, and again, I think it's a legit debate, where if you have a lot of these Democrats that are flooding into Republican primaries, then maybe a caucus is the right way to go. Now, people are asking, okay, so what exactly is a caucus? A caucus is, and I guess there's different kinds of caucuses. Murray County does a caucus. I don't exactly know how they do it, but basically it's a one-time, specific time, specific place, and people show up, and you've got, it's within the party, and people show up and to their specific places, and there's a representative for each candidate, if you will, and everybody gives speeches, and then people decide who they're going to support. And I understand that, but the problem is that it's a one-time, one-place kind of a thing. There's no early voting. There's no flexibility if you can't make it. And as everybody who talks about this will tell you, if you are on vacation, if you have to work, whatever, and you can't make it, well, then you're kind of screwed. And so that, to me, is a very legitimate concern about a caucus. But it is also a legitimate concern about Democrats infiltrating into Republican primaries. I would very much advocate for closed primaries here in the state of Tennessee. But, the state legislature is not going to take that up, it would appear, and they should, by the way. So our big Daily Dan poll on YouTube is, do you support primaries or caucuses? And what do people say?
It's kind of overwhelming right now. 92% vote primary over caucus.
It makes so much sense. Like, caucuses do not make sense.
I've never liked caucuses. I guess there's different ways to do it. I've always been in places where they have primaries, so I've never done a caucus. So, people are asking me to explain a caucus. I've watched Epstein videos on what exactly is a caucus, and they have different variations. And so I don't know exactly what Williamson County would do if they were going to go to this. And again, I don't know if Elevate, some of their members have posted that, and by the way, deleted posts, have said that they would advocate for a caucus. So, but then they deleted the post. So I don't know what is up with these folks.
You think they're backtracking?
They might be. Because maybe they got a lot of pushback. I don't know. That's why I'm going to have the guy on. The guy that's running for chairman is going to be on the show at some point. I got to figure out when to do this.
I live in Williamson County. It's overwhelmingly Republican, obviously.
Oh yeah.
So if you're not going to get on the side of like that side, you're not going to win. And it seems like they're not winning on this issue, and they might be backtracking. We'll see though.
Well, I just think it's a fine conversation to have.
Absolutely.
Like, why not have the discussion? Because if there is a big problem in Williamson County with this, and apparently it is, but here's the thing, on their own website, and I did talk about this yesterday, by the way, the guy that we're going to talk to eventually is Steve Hickey. Hope that's his name, how you pronounce it. With Elevate Tennessee, he is going to be with us at some point this morning. But they do talk about the success that they've had, because this is the organization that is currently in charge of Williamson County, where they bragged about on their website, they have increased membership by 68%. They say that the donations have increased by 62%. They say Williamson County remains very red. So why do we need a caucus?
Yeah, I was about to say, my question is, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Why are you trying to fix it?
Right. But again, I want to be fair. So
right, absolutely.
We'll see.
That's my question, at least.
Hey, can we talk about Dolly Parton?
Okay.
I woke up to that news, and I am heartbroken for Dolly.
I know. I am
60
too.
60 years is like, that's a lifetime.
Well, yeah. They met, I don't know. Very early. Obviously, she was not a star. You know how they met, right, Joan? Do you know how they met?
Well, I just had it in my news.
Okay. They met in a laundromat.
Yeah. They met in a laundromat on her first day here in Nashville.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
I want to know what laundromat it was, and is it still a laundromat?
Yeah. No
Ooh,
kidding.
you
I
think-
would like to know that too.
Like a historical landmark, like people go, this is where she, like her first day, she was there. That would
Yeah.
actually get some views. Yeah, that's actually not a bad idea.
I
said-
think that that would be very cool to know where that was.
She said, words can't do justice to the love we shared. And he was so behind the scenes.
Carl Dean.
Which is awesome.
And by the way, in case you're just joining us, Carl Dean is Carl Dean, right?
Carl Dean.
Okay.
Yep.
His Dolly's husband, 60 years, and he passed away. And what were you going to say, KGB?
I was saying, like, I love that someone is like, when someone has like a famous significant other, they're not trying to overtake them. They're behind the scenes supporting them. I prefer that over people. You know, like, I always look at like Patrick Holmes' brother, like, took over TikTok and he tried to leech off his brother's success. That wasn't him. He was just, go do your thing. I'm here to support you.
USA Today said he was so private that a lot of people actually wondered if he existed.
That's
He
perfect.
rarely walked the red carpet, made an appearance at a premiere, or even attended a show of hers.
Which is so weird.
Yeah.
That's
Like,
a little odd.
I'm not saying he's weird or their marriage was weird. I'm saying it's just, it's strange that he was so behind the scenes.
He might have like social anxiety. He might have like that, you know, some people are just so uncomfortable in social situations of that magnitude that they can't like really be themselves in a sense because they're just frozen. He might have a little social
I think it takes I'm going to say it this way. I think it takes a very special marriage where one person clearly just, you go do you, and knowing, and here's the crazy thing. I don't know if he went out on tour with her, but I mean, knowing how much of a sex symbol Dolly Parton is, and he was totally fine to be behind the scenes. You go to the awards and you go to your concert and everything like that.
A lot of trust there.
A lot of trust, man. Well, it's Dolly Parton.
So-
Well, she never broke that trust.
She did have him come to a show in 1966, right? So in her book, which was Dolly, My Life, and Other Unfinished Business, she writes that it was enough to convince him that the glitz and glam was not the scene for him. After the event, Dean told his new wife, quote, I love you and I will support you in your career any way I can, but I'm not going to go to any more of these wingdings.
Wingdings?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, he sounds like me.
He sounds like an old school farmer, like guy that's doesn't go in the city at all and just like likes.
I wonder what he did for a
He was a
living.
businessman.
He was just a businessman.
Real estate dealings.
Okay.
Tended to their ranch. They have a ranch here in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
And he shooed, according to the USA Today, he shooed away reporters.
He shooed away reporters.
Yep, just wanted to have a private life.
Dolly Parton is a Tennessee treasure. Like do you know that I've been trying to get Dolly Parton on this show for 11 years?
Oh, have you? Yeah.
One of my first things, and we had a guy who worked here, used to, who was and is, I don't know if he's retired now, but he was very big in country music. I had been begging him to get me Dolly Parton for like years.
Yeah.
Never happened. I don't know if she doesn't do a lot of interviews or if it's just me and Murphy, because Murphy's been trying too.
It might just be political radio she wants to avoid.
And that is perfectly reasonable.
Yeah.
That is absolutely perfectly reasonable. I mean, if I were Dolly Parton, I probably wouldn't come on my own show either. So, whatever.
Yesterday, my husband and I are staying with my son and his wife. They just had a new baby, so we're kind of helping out a little bit. So they go to the mailbox yesterday and come back with a new book from Dolly Parton because she, sends the books to children.
Yeah.
So we sat on the floor, and my granddaughter will be 2, sat on the floor for about a half hour paging through this book. And I thought, what a treasure Dolly Parton is for just this for this reason, sending books to kids.
Riker has a whole bunch of Dolly Parton books.
Yeah.
So who's bigger in the history of Tennessee? Would it be Elvis or would it be Dolly? I think Dolly's might be overtaking Elvis a tad, in the current generation at least.
Current generation, well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Because they're both, like, when you think of Tennessee, you're thinking of both of them.
Well, you think of culture.
Yeah.
So I think Elvis, obviously Memphis. Dolly Parton, obviously Nashville. But I think currently, I don't know. Boy, that's an interesting question. There's Johnny Cash in there too.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah.
Those 3 cultural icons in the, well, listen, let's not forget Al Gore. Totally kidding. There's a laugh line. Apparently that wasn't all that funny.
He lost this state in 2000. That's the best part of that.
So I think Dolly. Personally, I think Dolly. I mean, Johnny, and that doesn't take anything away from Johnny Cash, but
what she's done for the state, I think, puts her a little over the top. She's very good at like the public service to the state.
Oh, by the way, people are hitting us up on the super text line.
Yeah,
they're saying it's the wishy-washy laundromat.
I just looked it up. It's not there anymore.
Oh,
where
there's
was
one
it?
in Lawrenceburg. There's it's a popular name for a laundromat, but it's not showing up on maps right now.
8837 says it was wishy-washy on Murfreesboro Road.
There you go.
Well, Murfreesboro Road has done a lot of changing.
Yeah.
So that makes sense why it's kind of
that song Jolene.
Yep, Jolene.
Yeah. So my daughter's name is Jolie, Jolie. Can I just tell you how many people sing Jolene to her all the time?
And your daughter's like, you just could have made it Jolene.
Yeah,
I had to be Jolene.
Right.
So that's very funny. Well, I didn't even know Carl Dean was sick. That's the thing. Do we know how he died?
They are not saying.
Okay.
So we don't know any of that.
Yeah.
Well, how he was in his 80s, right?
82.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably some.
How old is Dolly?
Probably the same age, or actually younger. I would say in her 70s, mid 70s.
All right. Well, I mean,
she is 79.
Oh,
Okay.
late 70s.
Well, prayers for Dolly. This obviously after 60 years, that is devastating. And again, I do believe that she is an absolute Nashville and American institution. But obviously, she's identified with here in Nashville and certainly out east with Dollywood, east in the state, and Dollywood and all that other stuff.
We forgot one more person in Tennessee, though. It's T Swift.
No, not even close. She wasn't. Well, was Dolly born? Yeah, Dolly was born here, wasn't she?
Yeah. No. Remember,
I don't think T Swift. If people are saying on the super text line, T Swift has homes all across America.
Yeah, but didn't she get her career started in Tennessee though?
Yeah. She came from Pennsylvania and she did the rounds and all that. But I mean, listen, she's got homes in Tennessee. She also has a home in Rhode Island, Los Angeles, and New York, and she had one in London as well. So T Swift doesn't cut it as far as being a big cultural icon for the state of Tennessee. It is 5:53 on Nashville's Morning News, and Joan Jones has the news coming up at 6.
Yeah, we're going to keep an eye on the weather today. We'll tell you why. And there's a man from Brentwood under arrest for threatening a terror attack in Nashville. We've got those details coming up for you at 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Dan Mandis here at 5:53. I want to tell you about my buddy Mark Spain Real Estate. Sell your home with a guaranteed offer from Mark Spain Real Estate. Receive the strongest cash offer in the industry. You're going to save time and make the most money. Now, with the guaranteed offer from Mark Spain Real Estate, you can skip the hassle of getting your home ready to sell, receive an all-cash offer, and close in as little as 21 days. There's no showings, no open houses, and no stress. Now, their client, Jerry, this is what he said. He says, we needed to move quickly, and we were worried the process would be lengthy, and we would spend a lot of money on repairs. Mark Spain Real Estate got us an offer in just 3 days, and it was over the asking price. It was amazing. Friends, selling your home is a big decision, and who you work with matters. As the most experienced real estate team in the industry, you can trust my friends at Mark Spain Real Estate to sell your home fast and for maximum profit. Find out what your guaranteed cash offer would be. There's no obligation. 855-299-SOLD. 855-299-SOLD to get a guaranteed offer on your home today. MarkSpain.com and start packing.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
.558, Nashville's morning news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Welcome on in. So we've gone ahead and watch us on YouTube, like and subscribe to the channel if you would, and watch us every morning. So, and listen also every morning, of course. So we went ahead and changed the poll because it was absolutely unanimous, like sometimes happens, where the original poll question was primaries versus caucuses. Talking about what's going to happen in Williamson County tonight. And it was overwhelming. People supported primaries versus caucuses. And so we went ahead and changed the, Joan, we went ahead and changed the poll question. Yeah. The new poll question is, and how did you frame it, KGB?
Bigger Tennessee icon, Dolly or Elvis. I think that's the best way of putting it.
Should we just limit it to those two? I mean, because you've got Johnny Cash out there
honestly,
as well.
I think Cash would be third, though. I mean, just in terms of...
Let people tell us.
Let the people decide, KGB.
Come on,
what are you in favor of
This
caucuses?
is my poll. I create it. I created this monster. I'm going to control it.
About creating a monster.
Jeez, Lord, have mercy. Did you hear what I said, by the way, Joan? I said, what are you in favor of caucuses?
Oh,
I
see that?
I said that to KGB.
Because
he's like
when it comes to this show, I'm a dictator.
Well,
take out the tater.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, Dan.
Moving right along, and by the way, at this point, you should be playing the music leading me up to. There it is. Thank you.
That's the one.
That's the one. All right, 6 o'clock, very busy 6 o'clock hour. Coming up, it is Tariff Tuesday. What is this going to do to our economy? Details on that and a whole lot more straight ahead. It is Nashville's Morning News. Super text line is open, 615-737-9986. Got a lot more straight ahead. It is Nashville's Morning News on WTN.
Good morning, 6 o'clock. I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. We're at 54 degrees, overcast skies right now, but a wind advisory has been issued for the Nashville area all the way through 6 o'clock tomorrow night. We're expecting winds that could gust higher than 40 miles an hour, and there is a chance that some of those winds could gust higher than 50 miles per hour. Then tonight comes thunderstorms. Right now, Channel 4 Stefano DiPietro tells us these storms could be strong to isolated severe thunderstorms, and they'll arrive just in time for supper.
Between about 3 and 5 o'clock, the storms are developing. They're near the I-65 corridor. Also around dinner time, between about 6 and 7 o'clock, moving into the Cumberland Plateau between 6 and 9 o'clock. Before midnight, most of this will taper off, and we should completely dry things out, at least briefly, for that morning commute tomorrow.
Now, Nashville Electric Service says it has crews on standby for any power outages caused by this wind and the storms today and tonight. NES says it does not expect widespread outages, but there could be areas that do temporarily lose power. NES reminds everyone to stay at least 30 feet away from any downed power lines. Other news, a man from Brentwood is under arrest, charged with threatening to firebomb the federal courthouse in Nashville within the next 2 weeks. 35-year-old Alexander Thompson reportedly made those threats on social media posts and through emails. He was arrested at his workplace in Goodlettsville, and police say he admitted to making the threats and his intent to carry out the attack. President Trump's 25% tariffs against Canada and Mexico went into effect at midnight. The administration also enacting 20% tariffs on imports from China. Despite the legacy media's alarm, Moody Analytics chief economist Mark Zandi says this is not the time to freak out.
Everything from vehicles to appliances to consumer electronics, all those things will take time to filter through. But I suspect by Memorial Day, we will all feel the effects of the higher prices on all these different products.
Also yesterday, President Trump hit the pause button on all military aid to Ukraine. Money News brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com.
New tariffs on imports from Canada, Mexico, and China took effect at midnight, prompting a quick response from Beijing and Ottawa. Canada will impose 25% tariffs on $107 billion worth of U.S. goods, and China is slapping a 15% tariff on some U.S. imports starting March 10th. The escalating trade war sent Wall Street's investors into a selling spree, with the Dow Jones falling 650 points, the Nasdaq shedding more than 2.5%, and the S&P posting its biggest daily loss since December. Facing a sharp decline in revenues, Red Robin says it's considering closing about 70 of its restaurants as their leases expire over the next 5 years. The gourmet burger chain hopes the closures help it to repay some debts. Jim Ryan, ABC News.
Looks like no big moves when the stock market opens this morning. The Dow futures are down 21, Nasdaq futures are up 20, and the S&P futures -1. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News. Still have the off-ramp partially blocked off this morning on the 24 westbound off-ramp to I-40. There's a crash there. Also in Hermitage, Andrew Jackson Parkway at Old Lebanon Dirt Road, there's a crash. And in Woodbine on 24, the westbound side before I-440, it's a one-car crash and the right shoulder there is blocked. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
6:06, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 W10. Good morning to you, friends. How are you? Welcome on in to Tariff Tuesday. It is March 4th of 2025, and I got to tell you, a lot of news. I just want to kind of get right to it, and people are really freaking out about these tariffs. And so we're going to talk a little bit about this. I'm just going to tell you, I have no idea what is going to happen with the tariffs. You heard Joan reporting it in the news. So we have our tariffs that are beginning today against Canada and also against Mexico. China, of course, this has been an ongoing discussion. China now hitting us back. President Trump, yesterday, he lowered the boom. And yes, this did cause a lot of, as they say, sell-offs. It caused a lot of consternation in the markets yesterday.
But very importantly, tomorrow tariffs 25% on Canada and 25% on Mexico, and that'll start. So they're going to have a tariff. So what they have to do is build their car plants, frankly, and other things in the United States, in which case they have no tariffs. I would just say this to people in Canada or Mexico, if they're going to build car plants, the people that are doing them are much better off building here because we have the market. We're the market where they sell the most.
So, and that's the whole point. Remember what Donald Trump wants, and you just heard it, right? He wants to put America first by encouraging these nations, these other nations, Canada, Mexico, Taiwan, and we're going to get to that in a second. But they want to encourage these other nations and these companies to open up plants here in America. So that will help our job market, our communities, and theoretically our economies. And basically what Donald Trump is saying is, look, if you want access to the United States market, in other words, Americans, then you've got to have this stuff built in America. And if not, then we're going to charge you to have access to the hundreds of millions of people here in America. Now, making headlines this morning, I don't know if you saw this, the premier of Ontario, I guess in Canada, now he's fighting fire with fire, and he's going to, this is what he's threatening to do. Guy's name is Doug Ford. And he's the premier of Ontario. He says that he is going to cut electricity to New York, Michigan, and Minnesota.
If they want to try to annihilate Ontario, I will do everything, including cut off their energy, with a smile on my face. So, and I'm encouraging every other province to do the same. Quebec, Manitoba, BC, we all have to act in unison out east. They rely on our energy. They need to feel the pain. They want to come at us hard, we're going to come back twice as hard.
So he was clearly really angry, ticked off at Donald Trump at the news that those tariffs are going into effect today. Canada, by the way, in case you don't know the numbers, I've spoken about this ad nauseum. Canada makes about $6 billion in sales of electricity from here in America, and his province of Ontario is leading the way. So basically, he's saying, I'm going to forego the $6 billion just to prove a point.
They're going to feel the pain. And they want to go after our families, take food off our tables, try to close down our companies. I'll tell you, we're going to fight like I've never fought before to protect Canada, to protect the people of Ontario and their businesses and their communities and their jobs.
Now, there's a difference. Can I just say there's a difference between a tariff war? That, these things happen all the time. And just unilaterally cutting off an entire region from electricity. So there is a difference there. So this dude is escalating it big time. And remember the whole argument. Remember that we buy, here in America, most of Canada's exports. And so for Canada, a 25% tariff, that is a disaster for them because we buy a lot of their stuff. And so it's somewhere around, I guess, $1.5 trillion in trade. And Trump has an issue with this because we have a trade deficit, depending on the chart that you use, but roughly about $63 billion, meaning Canada exported $63 billion more into our country than they took in from America. According to this Ontario Premier, again, Doug Ford, that number is about to get worse for our side.
We are the largest purchaser of alcohol in the world. We buy over 3,600 products from 35 states. I talked to the governor of Kentucky and Mitch McConnell. Don't touch our bourbon. I'm going after absolutely everything. And I don't want to. We keep the lights on to 1.5 million homes in manufacturing in New York, in Michigan, and in Minnesota. If he wants to destroy our economy and our families, I will shut down the electricity going down to the U.S.
So Donald Trump, of course, you know that Donald Trump loves his tariffs, and he does see these tariffs as something that will encourage companies to bring jobs here. And we have seen some evidence of that just yesterday.
Today, Taiwan Semiconductor is announcing that they will be investing at least $100 billion in new capital in the United States over the next short period of time to build state-of-the-art semiconductor manufacturing facilities. I think mostly it's going to be in Arizona, which is what I understand, which is a great state. I like it because I won it, but I won most of them, actually. So.
Classic Donald Trump, but that was big news. They're calling this huge, monumental news, a big victory for Donald Trump and, of course, the Republican Party. Is that Taiwan and this company announcing they are going to be building new manufacturing plants here in America, as you just heard, in Arizona. This is from the Associated Press. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, or TSMC, is one of the world's largest manufacturers of semiconductor chips, and they plan to make the major investment over the next several years. Now, remember, that massive investment Apple made a couple weeks ago, right? $500 billion, making their stuff here, making their whatever here. And that's $500 billion. And that is being invested into our country. And they specifically said, Tim Cook said, it was to avoid those tariffs. So the tariffs are working. That was a huge $500 billion investment in building plants here in cities all across America, including, by the way, if I remember right, Michigan was one of them. I think Pennsylvania was another. In other words, battleground states. So now the question is, will these tariffs lead to higher prices? Will this lead to inflation? Will this lead to ultimately the American people having to pay for those tariffs? We'll talk about that straight ahead on Super Talk 99.7 WTN 6:15. Time to check the roads.
Parkway at Old Lebanon Dirt Road. We've got a crash. No problems on 40 or 65. I'm Christy O'Brien.
6:15 as far as your weather, high today of 66, winds, rain as well. And by the way, coming up before the news at 6:30, some big news regarding the Epstein files. Details straight ahead on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So talking about these tariffs and will they raise prices? I don't know. The Trump administration hasn't been able to make any kind of a guarantee that prices would not go up. There's a lot of people that will tell you, absolutely prices will go up. But part of what Trump is doing is this is a multifaceted, multi-level attack on the economy, trying to improve the economy and ultimately lower prices or bring more money into America. Because if you've got more, and this is what Trump is thinking, this is the thinking, you're going to have more things manufactured here in America. That is going to create more jobs. That is going to create more of a tax base. So you have that. If there are companies that will agree to pay those tariffs, that is also money coming into our country. He is also extending the Trump tax cuts as well. That is also a very big deal. So you have all of these things that Donald Trump is trying to do, all of these policy initiatives. And so I think what he's hoping to do, all of this cauldron of initiatives, is he's hoping that ultimately that will lead to a far better and far stronger economy. I don't know whether or not these tariffs will ultimately end up raising prices for you and I, either at the at the grocery store, whatever. We simply don't know. Because both sides have these predictions. If you're an economist that is pro Donald Trump and pro conservative and whatever, well then you're going to say no. This is not going to ultimately end up raising prices. Others who are anti Donald Trump will say, of course it will. And so nobody really knows because we are in uncharted territory. But there is no doubt that whether it is Apple, whether it is this Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing company, TSMC, with their massive investment in America, there is no doubt that will help America. That will help our economy. Howard Lutnick, you know him. He is Trump's Commerce Secretary, and he does credit the tariffs for bringing this big deal, the semiconductor deal, here to America.
And now you're seeing the power of Donald Trump's presidency because TSMC, the greatest manufacturer of chips in the world, is coming to America with a $100 billion investment. And of course, that is backed by the fact that they can come here because they can avoid paying tariffs. So the idea is come to America, build greatness in America, build for the American customers.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously we're going to have to see what happens with the battle against Canada, how all of this is going to impact the markets this morning. Joan, you said the markets, the futures and all that, there's not really a lot of chaos going on right now. Is that still the case?
At the moment, they're flat. So,
okay.
The stock futures are not moving very much. They're a little bit lower now. Dow futures down 71. It was yesterday's losses that were just significant.
Yeah, I was
Dow
looking
Jones
at
losing 650. So
I was looking at my phone because my phone has the little my screen is the stock market, and I looked at it and I'm like, oh, something's happened. What did Donald Trump say or do?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And sure enough, and so for me, I wish I could say that I knew what this is going to happen. Here's the problem. The problem is that Trump is going to give his speech to the joint session of Congress tonight. Mm-hmm. And so we got a couple of things going on. Speaking of, the House of Representatives and, of course, the Senate as well. But we do have midterm elections. Now, he has, I think, by and large, Donald Trump, he literally solved the immigration problem in a day. I mean, pretty much he did.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to close the border, remain in Mexico, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to be honest, it's not even really much of a conversation anymore because we know that the status quo right now is the borders are closed and bad guys are being deported. Other people are being deported as well. And the border, again, is now protected. So that, at least to me, no longer really that relevant of a conversation, except that we do see successes in the numbers along the way. So that was a big reason why Trump was elected. The other reason Trump was elected was the economy, specifically inflation and the cost of things. And so that's the big question. This is kind of a big gamble for Trump.
Tonight, the name of the address, Trump's renewal of the American Dream address.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you know what? I love it. Yeah. And y'all know I'm a big Trump supporter. I voted for the man, 3 times now? The question is, if these tariffs ultimately end up causing prices to go up, well, then he can't blame Biden. You know what I mean? Like right now, we can still blame Joe Biden because, we had 4 years of a piss poor economy thanks to Joe Biden and all the things that Biden did. I don't want to relitigate all that stuff. But is the answer tariffs? And so with Trump, as he is negotiating, and part of this is a negotiation, but as he is negotiating and going through all of this, if prices ultimately end up going up, well, then prices would be going up because of something specifically that Donald Trump did, which was engage in this tariff war. However, if he can make the argument that overall our economy is better because of the jobs and the manufacturing that has come into our country to avoid those tariffs, or countries and companies that are paying tariffs, and that is more money into America. And yes, the extension of the Donald Trump tax cuts, again, I talked about it earlier, that cauldron, and also USAID and Doge and all of the money that we are saving because of Doge. And so you throw that into that cauldron of policy initiatives that Donald Trump is engaged in. And perhaps he'll be able to make the argument that our economy is better under Donald Trump. But I think ultimately it is all going to come down to the price of things. And that is going to be what ultimately is going to be the, what people vote on in the midterm elections, at least to me. So we'll have to see what happens.
The economist that I just had the soundbite from in the news said that we'll start seeing prices after Memorial Day. So not even right now. It'll take a while for those extra prices,
It does take a while.
Yeah. So this is not freak out time.
No.
It will be if they stick around.
Yep.
But I think the gamble here is that impose the prices and get everyone in line.
Yep. Impose the tariffs and get everybody in line. And if, a real trade war ensues, then we'll have to let the chips fall where they may. I do think that Trump is gambling. I do think that he is gambling. I think that he's going to win this gamble because I think right now he understands that our economy is hurting. He does want to bring more jobs to our country, and he does believe, and I believe rightly so, that we are being treated unfairly with the tariffs from other countries as we try to export into other countries. So he's got great points. The question is ultimately, what will the reaction be? Boy, it's 6:23 on WTN. Joan Jones has the news at 6:30. Joan.
Yeah, there was a gruesome hit and run along Old Hickory Boulevard Monday night, and police are asking for some help solving it. That's coming up here at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Think of Joan, 6:23. What could you do with an extra $75,000 right now? Maybe even a couple $100,000. Now, if you own a home, you can get that money in less than a week with Loan Pronto. Dan Mandis here. Loan Pronto is the leader in quickly converting your home's equity into cold, hard cash. So you can pay off all your credit cards or you can start that home remodel. Now, Loan Pronto has several easy options to let you access the cash from your home. There's virtually no paperwork, no cumbersome process, no junk fees, and often no appraisal. The average homeowner right now, maybe you, has over $300,000 in equity. That is your money, and yes, you need to use it. You can get approved in as little as 1 day, so act right now with no hard credit pull up front. LoanPronto.com, 615-499-5780, 615-499-5780. Get the money you need for anything with Loan Pronto, LoanPronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval, NMLSConsumerAccess.org.
Shoulder and Hermitage, Andrew Jackson Parkway, an accident at Old Lebanon Dirt Road. I'm Christy O'Brien.
Dan Mandis here for United Structural Systems. Listen, I've been telling you for years about USS. They are experts in waterproofing, concrete leveling, and Foundation Repair. Now, this is a great company. They've helped me several times over the years with my home. And that is why I proudly do endorse United Structural Systems. Now, I am one of 30,000 satisfied customers. And listen to this recent review on Google. Guy says that USS was highly professional. The crew was phenomenal from start to finish, and they treated his home like their own home. He gives USS 5 stars all the way. United Structural Systems, they're not going to charge you for any unnecessary repairs, and you're not going to pay a dime until the work is done, and you're a satisfied customer. And they can help you with basement and crawl space waterproofing, basement wall stabilization, and foundation repair. We guarantee our best. Call USS at 615-488-7855, 615-488-7855, USSTN.com. .629, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN KGB. Need some audio, if I could. Attorney General Pam Bondi is talking about the Epstein files, and good news here. Looks like they have found some missing documents.
And the FBI handed over a couple hundred pages of documents. But, you know, Sean, I gave them a deadline of Friday at 8 a.m. to get us everything. And a source had told me where the documents were being kept, Southern District of New York, shock. So we got them all by, hopefully all of them, Friday at 8 a.m., thousands of pages of documents. I have the FBI going through them, and Cash is also, now that we have Cash here, it's a game changer, of course.
There you go. So they've got apparently thousands of documents that Cash Patel and her office is going through. Matthew Hurt is going to join us coming up next right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good morning. It is now 6:30, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. There's an accident, 24 westbound lanes approaching Almaville Road this morning. It's a single vehicle, but it is attracting some attention, and it is slow in that spot, too. Traffic and weather are still to come here right after the news. The search is on for a dark-colored Toyota Tacoma truck involved in a hit-and-run that happened on Monday night. Metro Nashville police say a man was seen riding a scooter along the shoulder of Old Hickory Boulevard near I-24.
At some point, he attempted to cross the road and was hit by the driver of a Toyota Tacoma. Witnesses reportedly told officers the impact of the crash caused sparks to fly and the man and scooter to be dragged more than 900 feet before coming off.
Channel 4's Jordan James there. That man was killed and the truck drove away toward Murfreesboro Pike. Anyone with information is asked to call police. A trade war underway now that President Trump's tariffs on Canada and Mexico are in effect. It's 20% on China. We're already getting a response, though, from Canada.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford now threatening to shut off electricity to American homes near the border who rely on Canadian power. But Trump says the tariffs are needed. He says the U.S. is getting ripped off by bad trade deals that cost American jobs. And he claims Canada and Mexico aren't doing enough to stop illegal immigration and fentanyl shipments. Less than 1% of the fentanyl in the U.S. comes across the Canadian border.
That's ABC's Andrew Dimbert. Now, stick around 8:06 this morning. Dan will have Heritage Foundation economist E.J. Antoni. He'll talk about those tariffs and how it'll affect the U.S. The Supreme Court will hear arguments this morning over Mexico's charges that American gun makers should be held liable for the weapons that flew south over the border.
The government of Mexico is seeking $10 billion in damages from American gun makers. The companies say they are immune from suit under federal law. The justices will decide whether the case can move forward under an exception. It's the first time the court has ever considered immunity for American gun manufacturers.
That is the latest news. We've got your traffic and weather ahead. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News.
6:32, Nashville's Morning News. Dan Mandis here, and you know, it is so amazing to be able to see without glasses, thanks to Dr. Horn and Vision for Life. Now, you folks know I wore glasses for years. I needed corrective surgery to treat my cataracts, and I researched all the local ophthalmologists, and one guy kept showing up as Nashville's best. Dr. Horn at Vision for Life. They've been doing this for 20 years now, 20 years of helping folks see with 20/20 vision or better. Vision for Life has thousands of positive reviews, and they've been around for decades. Now, Dr. Horn, with me, he took the time to sit with me, and he answered all my questions and my concerns, and I did have a lot. Will it hurt? What's the recovery time? Will I need glasses? Dr. Horn, I kid you not, friends, he spent 45 minutes with me walking through the process and answering all my questions. By the way, no, it does not hurt. The recovery time is really quick, and no, I don't need glasses. Now, weeks after the procedure, I am now at 20/20 vision and 100% satisfied with Dr. Horn. My only regret is that I didn't do this sooner. Help them celebrate 20 years of providing 20/20 vision by scheduling your consultation today. That phone number is 615-436-2020. For Vision for Life and Dr. Horn, 615-436-2020. Online, visionforlife.com.
It's an accident in Smyrna this morning on 24, the westbound side approaching Almaville. That's exit 70, and it's a single vehicle accident. There's also a crash in Woodbine on 24 westbound before I-440. Also a one-car crash, and that one also blocking the right shoulder. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
6:35, Nashville's Morning News on WTN. Dan Mandis here. Matthew Hurt coming up next. And what to expect from Donald Trump's big speech tonight. Spring cleaning time, and Zero Res is offering a great way to get your carpets clean and save you money. Now, I've been using Zero Res for years because they don't use harsh chemicals and soaps, just powered water. And that means pure safety for your family and your pets. Now, I want you to think about the last few months of snow and all of that rain. So you've got all of that dirt and that grime and that bacteria that has been tracked into your home. You need a carpet cleaning company that can safely get your carpets clean. My friends at Zero Res, they can do that. They've got great reviews on both Google and Facebook and from the Mandis household as well. Now, they've got a great deal going on for March right now. A couple of rooms of carpets cleaned for $109. 25% off of area rugs. Again, 2 rooms of carpets cleaned for $109, 25% off of area rugs. Restrictions may apply. Call them. Tell them Dan told you to reach out. 615-535-9376. 615-535-9376. ZeroResNashville.com. .637, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Welcome on into the program, our grassroots political analyst, Matthew Hurt. And it's a big night for Donald Trump, addressing joint session of Congress. And Matthew, what do people have to do? What does Donald Trump have to do tonight?
Well, Donald Trump tonight is going to showcase the first 45 or 50 days of his administration. I think we're going to see comments on immigration. We're going to see probably Elon Musk take front and center with Doge, things like taking on DEI. And then, of course, as you've been talking about for the last 30 minutes and on and off throughout your show, the tariffs. And we're going to see all of these elements spoken about by Donald Trump, but we're also going to see it in the guests that Republicans and Democrats bring to Congress. We always have, members of Congress always bring guests. The president always brings guests, and we're going to see a number of guests that highlight both sides of each of these conversations. And I think it'll be a very interesting presentation, Trump's first presentation to Congress in this term. And so it should be pretty exciting for supporters of Donald Trump to see him come into the House of Representatives and make the case for his agenda.
So I think by all accounts, Donald Trump's war on illegal immigration has been a success. And really the two big things that people voted for Trump on, illegal immigration and, of course, the economy. There's a lot of hand-wringing going on regarding these tariffs. Of course, the markets had a big sell-off yesterday. They seem to be okay this morning, the futures. But I think that part of what's going on is, number one, you have a lot of people in the media. They're sort of, they're trying to predict a doom and all of these other things. It's going to send us into a recession, a depression, all of these other things. Inflation's going to go up. Oh, my God. I don't know if anybody knows what's really going to happen. And I've got E.J. Antoni from Fox News and Heritage Foundation at 806. He's an economist. But I think that part of what's going on is, and I mentioned this in the previous monologue, is that Trump has a lot of things at his disposal right now. He's trying to cut government spending and government waste and all that. He is trying to collect tariffs from some of these other nations. It is a provable fact that we do have corporations and countries that are bringing businesses here into America. And what that is doing is creating jobs and, of course, expanding the tax base and all that kind of stuff. And so I think that Trump, I described this before, as like a cauldron of policies, economic policies, of course, extending the Trump tax cuts as well. And so it's not just about the tariffs, but it's about the results of the tariffs. There may be some higher prices temporarily. We don't really know what's going to happen, though, unless you do. But it seems like everybody's got an opinion, and a lot of them are different.
Well, there are a lot of wins in the first few weeks of this administration. This tariffs conversation is a little concerning to me. One of two things can happen, and they can both happen. Some businesses will relocate to the United States, but some businesses will be unable to do that. And as a practical matter, you think about when you go into Kroger to buy groceries, the sales tax is levied on the person buying the groceries. When you pay your property taxes, the sales tax is levied on the property tax is levied on the property owner. There seems to be some confusion among Trump supporters about who pays tariffs. And the people who pay tariffs are the consumer, and this is not up for debate. So if there's a 25% tariff on Canadian goods, on Mexican goods, on Chinese goods, those businesses that are unable to relocate to the United States, the consumer, the purchaser, will pay those tariffs. Corporations do not pay tariffs and don't pay taxes. Those costs are always passed on to the consumer. And so for some of these businesses will ultimately relocate to the United States. But those that cannot, the costs will be rolled into the cost of buying a car or buying a DVD player or whatever it is that you might buy from a Canadian or Mexican or Chinese company. And so we are going to see, and I think in the last hour you had a news report where it may take through Memorial Day for these costs to roll into the cost of buying these goods. But we are going to see higher prices. And if the president is interested in tackling inflation and bringing costs down, this is one element, a variable that we just don't know. As you've said, we just don't know what it's going to do to the cost of some of these goods. So how big of a threat is that to the midterm elections? Oh, we're still 19, 20 months out from the midterms, and we've seen over the last 8 years how quickly the news cycle moves. If you get a couple of big name companies who relocate to the United States, that will be good news for the Trump position on tariffs. But if these costs continue to rise, most voters don't think about the sort of hypothetical or philosophical application of politics until it hits their pocketbook. And so if people are able to, if mortgage rates come down, if the cost of living comes down, gas prices, eggs, all of those things, then that'll be good. But if prices continue to rise and we hit January, February, March of 2026, it's going to be hard to make the case that the economy is doing better for the individual who isn't paying attention to a lot of the stuff that's going on in Washington. Yeah, and I always say this about the economy because it just depends on how you look at it. And it depends on how you interpret the numbers. You can manipulate the numbers any way you want. But I talked about that in the previous segment, and the Supertext line blew up. 1840. Solar equipment prices have already started to climb. Christie says, Trump folks have said this may be a temporary pain, but a big gain ultimately. Another person, 9669, I work at a local building supply company. Rebar and other things have already begun to jump up. And another person, 9811, says, I feel uneasy, Dan. My wife and I have saved for years, finally got land to build on, and then this happens. It does have me nervous, but he still likes and appreciates President Trump. So I think that people are beginning to feel it. People are beginning to worry. But the reality is that prices have already been high. And so if President Trump can make the case that, yes, the cost of some things are going up, but ultimately the greater economy is going to be better. And then all I talked about with the creation of jobs and the tax base, and we'll talk about GDP and all of those other things, they'll have to be able to adjust their messaging so that they convince the American people, even if some prices are higher, the overall economy is good. But remember, that's what Joe Biden tried to do, and it didn't work. 6:45, time to check the roads on WTN.
No unusual delays on 440. I'm Christy O'Brien.
Weather today, a high of 66. Going to be really windy and rainy as well. Some storms, too. Keep it here on WTN. Your complete forecast is coming up at 7 o'clock. Matthew Hurt is joining us on Super Talk 99.7, our grassroots political analyst. And Matthew, you're right. Part of this discussion, all right, so if some prices do go up, then that happens. But Trump does have a lot of victories.
You're absolutely right. And just to circle back on some of the economic elements you just mentioned, this will have disproportionate impacts across a variety of industries. You mentioned solar panels, the economy, and particularly left of center states, blue states, and under the Biden administration, there was a disproportionate amount of incentives to engage in the green energy economy. So those costs were artificially depressed or lowered anyway. But there are a lot of big wins here. I think that we see on immigration, that we see on at least making the case that the government is being, there are efficiency measures being put in place. Now, I still argue that what Elon Musk and Doge do has to be confirmed by Congress. They have to actually pass the spending bills, and we've got Republican senators who refuse to sign on to that. I think it's up to the listeners to call in to their offices of the senators and representatives to make sure that they're actually voting for these things. Otherwise, it's money that's already been earmarked that's just going back to the Treasury. But there are big wins, and Donald Trump has, over the last month and a half to almost 2 months, has dominated the headlines with overwhelmingly positive news. And this is good news for Republicans. It's good news for Trump supporters.
Matthew, let me ask you, because you watch this stuff far closer than I do. What does the math look like for the House and the Senate in the mid? I know we're a long way away, and you may not have this off the top of your head, but usually you can look at, okay, so who's up for re-election in the Senate, and everybody, of course, is up for re-election in the House. But how does the math look as far as the Senate goes? Are they looking at the math and they're thinking, okay, so Republicans could actually pick up some more seats in the Senate depending on who's up for re-election in the next midterm election?
Well, the Senate midterms in 2026 include Georgia, Virginia, Illinois, Michigan, Minnesota, New Mexico, looks like Colorado, and Oregon, and a few states in the Northeast. We can pretty much write off everything from Delaware up. But Georgia could be a pickup. Of course, I believe Senator Mitch McConnell is not running again, so that Kentucky Senate race could go from hard Republican to a toss-up. We saw in the gubernatorial election, I think last year, where the Republican did not win. Michigan could flip to the Republican side, and so we still have probably a 1 or 2 seat cushion on the Senate side. And then, of course, in the House, we had big numbers. Republicans ran up big numbers even in these swing states, the 7 swing states that Trump won, but the margin is still so thin, and that has to do with redistricting in some of these states. They're going to have to, what conservatives and listeners of this program should be thinking about is nominating the most electable conservative or the most electable Republican who will advance the America First agenda in some of these districts where the races came down to a point or two. And then depending upon the elements that voters are thinking about leading into the midterms, it could go one way or the other. I think Republicans probably hold the Senate in 2026,
sure.
And the margin is thin in the House, but that could go either way. And of course, if Democrats take the House in 2026, then we've got almost a full stop on most of the America First agenda.
And I think that's why Donald Trump is working at the velocity that he is, the speed that he is, because he knows that he only has, 2 years. And so all of these executive orders, they've got to make it through the courts and all that. And so it does make sense that he is running at full speed. It is 6:50. Matt, how can people find you on X?
I'm on X at Matthew Hurt, MattheWHurtt.
All right. Looking forward to speaking to you again. Always great analysis. It is 6:50 on WTN. Dan Mandis here. And America is full of gun stores, but here in Middle Tennessee, My home for all things two-way is the Glock store. Now, whether it is training, buying, or upgrading, you can count on the Glock store. Now, one of the reasons Glocks are the most popular handguns in America is that there's so many custom and performance parts. And so you've got night sights and competition triggers and red dot optics. By the way, I've got a red dot optic. They're awesome. But there's so many ways to upgrade your firearm, and they can do it at the Glock store for free while you wait. That's right. There's always a gunsmith on duty at the Glock store. And yes, you did hear that right. You buy the parts. They are going to install them for free while you wait. There's a lot of reasons to like the Glock store, and free parts and installation is just one of them. I know that you're going to find lots to talk about and lots to like at the Glock store, just like me. Minutes from the airport and worth the drive from anywhere. Find them online anytime. Shoot270.com. That is shoot270.com and glockstore.com. Tell them Dan Mandis told you to reach out. 6:51, and Joan Jones has the news coming up at 7.
Yeah, we are expecting a 1-2 punch from the weather today. We've got more on that. Also, 7 months after the death of a boy at Boy Scout camp, charges have now been filed. Those stories and more coming up at 7 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
6:55, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk. You know, the weather in Middle Tennessee, it can get crazy, which is why you need a backup home standby generator from my friends at the Generator Super Center, the nation's #1 Generac generator dealer. Now, we're going to get some pretty crazy weather actually a little bit later on today. And every time we have this kind of weather, people think, you know, I really need to think about getting that backup home standby generator like you can find at the Generator Super Center. Get a free quote and get peace of mind when you have one installed. The Generator Super Center does feature expert installation and 24-hour monitoring. They're not going to leave you in the dark. Financing is available. Tell them Dan Mandis showed you to reach out. 615-879-1952. 615-879-1952. Generator Super Center of Nashville.com. .656, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Are we, Joan, are we looking at another government shutdown?
We could be within 2 weeks.
For the love of all that is.
Yes.
You know, I'm so tired of this.
Yes.
So, and I don't like to get drawn into these conversations because it very rarely does it actually lead to a government being shut down. It's always a bunch of hysteria from the Democrats and the Republicans. At least some of them are like, shut it down. Who cares, right? Donald Trump being in office and in charge, he, of course, brings a whole different spice to the whole thing. But Scott Jennings was on CNN, and this is a great back and forth between Jennings and a lunatical liberal, and this is what she had to say. And he says, you know what? You're full of crap.
Democrats should be talking to the American voter about how Donald Trump has not delivered on these key issues. And instead, we are heading towards a potential government shutdown that will only hurt the American people.
It's amazing to me, by the way, we're having this debate because Joe Biden was president for 4 years and ran the country off into the ditch, and that's why Kamala Harris lost the election. And now Donald Trump's been president for about 5 minutes, and Democrats are like, well, my gosh, why isn't somebody fixing all the problems we caused? I just don't think voters are that silly, really. I mean, I think they take a longer view of this. His report card will ultimately come in the midterms, which isn't until next year. Until then, he's got to get the Republicans in Congress to come along with him on this reconciliation plan, on extending and making permanent the tax cuts. And then the American people are going to give it a chance to work. But the guy took office in January, and he's trying to unravel a mess that was 4 years in the making. I think he's got a little more leash than maybe you're giving him credit for.
Yeah, he's got a great point. And that was part of my monologue earlier, which is the big piece of steaming pile of crap that was the Biden administration. Donald Trump comes in, and he's got all of these problems that he is trying to deal with. And that's why I'm not all worked up about the tariffs. I mean, can some things go up? Yeah, some things are going to go up. But ultimately, Trump is racking up the wins. Will the tariffs ultimately lead to higher prices? As I said, some people say yes, other people say no. Other people say, and I'm one of them, that there's a lot of things that you throw into the cauldron of economic policy, and hopefully you do have the greater good. By the way, watch us on YouTube, like and subscribe, all the good stuff, and also take the Daily Dan poll. Now, earlier we did have a poll, primary versus caucus, and that was overwhelming. People said absolutely primary. So we changed the poll, and now the poll is, who is the bigger Tennessee icon? Is it Elvis Presley or Dolly Parton? And so far, the results are
68% say Dolly.
You know, I figured that she would win. I kind of figured that.
You can get a license plate with her face on it here, for goodness sake.
And you know what? She's providing books for kids to read. I love it. I love Dolly, and condolences to Dolly for the loss of her husband, which came out last night. It is 7 o'clock on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good morning, 7 o'clock. I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. Got to watch it in the airport area. Pike, there's a crash reported causing a big delay this morning. We'll have more in traffic and weather right after the news. Weather, by the way, is going to be an issue for us in the Nashville area for a couple of reasons.
Today all the way through Wednesday, high wind gusts of 30 to 40 miles per hour. We very well could see some areas with wind gusts up to 50 miles per hour as we go through today. Strong thunderstorms will then also move in late today into the early part of tonight.
Channel 4's Stefano DiPietro there. Those strong thunderstorms have a 1 out of 5 chance that they'll become severe or perhaps spawn a tornado. 2 people are now facing charges in connection to a jet ski crash in July on Old Hickory Lake. It killed a 10-year-old boy. Jack Gear had been attending Boy Scout camp at the time. Channel 4's Alexandria Adams.
According to the Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency, Jack was on the back of the jet ski at the time, driven by a 19-year-old staff member. They crashed into another jet ski. Both Jack and the 19-year-old were seriously hurt, but Jack later died at the hospital. Police have not said if the 19-year-old is the same person that's facing charges in this case.
It's Joshua Kennington and Savannah Remington that were indicted by a grand jury. They've been released from jail, though, on bond. President Trump's 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico went into effect at midnight. China was hit with a 20% tariff on its imports to the U.S.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford now threatening to shut off electricity to American homes near the border who rely on Canadian power. But Trump says the tariffs are needed. He says the U.S. is getting ripped off by bad trade deals that cost American jobs. And he claims Canada and Mexico aren't doing enough to stop illegal immigration and fentanyl shipments. Less than 1% of the fentanyl in the U.S. comes across the Canadian border.
ABC's Andrew Dimbert reporting. Now, Dan is going to speak with E.J. Antoni, an economist with Heritage Foundation, about the tariffs. That's coming up at 8:06 this morning, about an hour from now. President Trump also paused all U.S. military aid to Ukraine, saying the U.S. is reviewing our aid to ensure that it is contributing to a solution to the war with Russia. Meantime, tonight, President Trump will address a joint session of Congress, and what he says about Ukraine will be highly watched.
Members of Congress are split on this. Both parties, frankly, deeply divided over what to do around supporting Ukraine funding. Even some of the biggest Ukraine hawks were, frankly, disgusted with what they saw out of Zelensky. A couple of Republicans have voiced more concern around Trump's behavior. Lots of Democrats have. This is the big foreign policy crisis of the moment, and people are going to be looking to President Trump for any kind of guidance on what's next.
That's ABC's Rick Klein. Now, we hope you will join us tonight at Nashville Palace at 6 o'clock. We'll be having a watch party for that joint session of Congress. Market numbers now brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com. Dow Jones Industrials, the pre-market here, the things are pointing down once again after a big sell-off yesterday. The Dow futures are minus 136, S&P futures down 32, NASDAQ futures, they're losing 128 right now. That's the latest news, traffic and weather next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News. Hamilton Creek, an accident, Bell Road, north of Couchville Pike this morning. And in the airport area, still working that crash at Murfreesboro Pike, at Old Murfreesboro Pike. There's an accident in Hermitage, too, on Lebanon Pike, west of Fessler's Lane, and one just in here, 24, the westbound lanes in Woodbine. Right before I-440, it's a one-car crash. They've been working on this for a while, too. Right shoulder is now blocked. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.706 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to your friends. Hope you're doing well. Welcome on into Tariff Tuesday. That's right. Tariffs kicking in for Mexico, Canada, China as well. We've been covering that quite a bit this morning. The other news, of course, that you have heard about is that Donald Trump, the president, has now decided to pause aid to Ukraine. The operative word, friends, is pause. And the president has decided to pause the funding for Ukraine for a number of different reasons. I want to play you some audio because you do have a lot of hysteria that is going on right now. President Trump last night, he said his justification for pausing this is because he wants to end what he sees, and I agree with him, as a forever war. And so this is part of what he said. This is the justification.
What do you need to see from President Zelensky to restart these negotiations?
Well, I just think he should be more appreciative because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us because, as you know, that's right there. That's the border. This country really was like the fence on the border. It was very important to Europe, and I'm not knocking Europe. I'm saying that they were a lot smarter than Joe Biden because Joe Biden didn't have a clue. He just gave money hand over fist, and they should have been able to equalize with us. In other words, if we gave $1, they should have given. Well, we gave $350 billion. They probably gave $100, but on top of it all, they get their money back because they're doing it in the form of a loan, and it's a secured loan. So when I saw that, which I've known about for a little while, I said it's time for us to be smart.
Yeah, and President Trump, of course, that's going to be one of the big things that he's going to talk about. And we were, of course, getting way ahead of our skis on the midterm elections in a conversation in the last hour. But there's going to be the results of the midterm elections, which, again, well over a year from now. But those results depend on what is happening right now. And there have been poll after poll after poll that has shown that the American people are tired of paying for Ukraine and this never-ending war. And so I like what the president is saying. And really what he's trying to do, let's all just be honest. President Trump is trying to put a stop to this war by forcing Zelensky to make some concessions. This is more of what he had to say.
Everybody has to get into a room, so to speak, and we have to make a deal. And the deal can be made very fast. It should not be that hard a deal to make. It could be made very fast. Now, maybe somebody doesn't want to make a deal. And if somebody doesn't want to make a deal, I think that person won't be around very long. That person will not be listened to very long. Because I believe that Russia wants to make a deal. I believe certainly the people of Ukraine want to make a deal. They've suffered more than anybody else.
I mean, listen, somebody please tell me Donald Trump is wrong. He's not wrong. He is absolutely right. The people of Ukraine and the people of Russia have suffered mightily. And the American people have suffered too because we're ticked off because we're paying for all of this. And so that's part of the dynamic you just heard. What is it going to take for Donald Trump, he was asked the question, to continue the funding for Ukraine? And he says that he wants Zelensky to be more grateful. And I understand that. And that certainly was part of that blow up that we saw last week on Friday. This was Peter Doocy.
I have been told by a senior official here
that nothing's going to happen with this minerals deal until Zelensky goes in front of cameras and makes an explicit public apology for the way that he behaved himself, behaved in the Oval Office with that meeting.
All right, so, and I said this a couple of days ago. I said, you know what, there is no way, because that mineral deal, Zelensky has come out and he said, I'm ready to sign the mineral deal. And earlier in the broadcast, and I think yesterday too, I said, okay, Zelensky is ready to sign that mineral deal. But apparently Trump is holding out for an apology for what I would say was the abhorrent behavior of Vladimir Zelensky. And so I got to, and I said this in the 5 o'clock hour, I don't think that Donald Trump likes pulling the funding because he knows that it could result in more deaths on Ukraine's side. But this war does need to end. And so the question is going to be asked, okay, so does the means justify the end? In other words, here we are, and Trump is pulling the funding, pausing the funding for now as we try to work out some sort of a deal, maybe get an apology, get Zelensky to make some concessions. That all makes all the sense in the world because Trump does need to try to end this war. And what's crazy is the president is the only one that seems to want to end this war.
President Zelensky supposedly made a statement today in AP. I'm not a big fan of AP, so maybe it was an incorrect statement, but he said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time. And he better not be right about that. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, so there was a photograph, and Trump posted this. So the photograph is a rather contemplative and downtrodden-looking Zelensky saying the end of the war with Russia is very, very far away. So Trump posted that with his own comment. He says this is the worst statement that could have been made by Zelensky, and America will not put up with it for much longer. Trump says, it is what I was saying. This guy doesn't want there to be peace as long as he has American backing, and Europe, in the meeting they had with Zelensky, stated flatly that they cannot do the job without the United States. Probably, Donald Trump says, not a great statement to have been made in terms of a show of strength against Russia. And Trump says, what were they thinking? And he's absolutely right. Remember, I played this audio for you yesterday where the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said,
the UK is prepared to back this with boots on the ground and planes in the air. Together with others, Europe must do the heavy lifting. But to support peace in our continent and to succeed, this effort must have strong US backing.
So what kind of a show of strength is that? I mean, Trump is absolutely right. And I would say to the UK and Europe, well, now's your chance. Because America has been giving, whether it's $350 billion or $175 billion, it depends on who you listen to. I really don't care. We're done. And so what I would say to the UK Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is now is your chance to step up. You want to be the one, or French President Macron? You want to step up? You want to be the leader of the Ukraine war? You knock yourself out. And the crazy thing in that audio that you just heard is that Starmer is saying, basically boots on the ground and planes in the air. So he is willing to let his own citizens die for this cause, as opposed to doing everything that he can to stop the carnage before resorting to that. And we talked about this the other day, where I think it was yesterday. You have all of these people. Trump is obviously just speaking the truth. And the truth is that this war has to end. And there's all these people that are so obsessed with Trump and hating on Trump and Trump derangement syndrome that they will actually let people die as opposed to support him in his mission to stop this war. Isn't that crazy? J.D. Vance was on with Sean Hannity last night. Great, great interview. I've got some must-hear audio straight ahead on this. It is 7:15. Time to check the roads on WTN. Weather today, a high of 66. We've got high winds, rain, some severe stuff coming in. Very slight chance of some tornadic activity. We've got your full forecast coming up at 7:30 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. By the way, the administration, in the big announcement by Donald Trump talking about how he is pausing the funding for Ukraine. This is not a permanent decision. And the president, he wants Zelensky to sign this. He wants him to sign this mineral deal. He apparently also wants an apology, a very public apology. But he also wants Zelensky to show some sort of a sign that the man wants peace. Donald Trump wants this war over. And Zelensky, everything the man does, everything the man posts, everything the man says is all about continuing this war. And Zelensky is so incredibly belligerent, and he's talking tough with everybody else's money. And of course, all of these people in Ukraine that are literally being forced to serve in their military. It is incredibly sad. And so Trump has been saying, listen, concessions might have to be had on both sides. But Zelensky is not in the position to really negotiate from a position of strength. He's just not. When Donald Trump said, you don't have the cards, he was absolutely right. Trump and the Republicans who are against more funding for Ukraine are only trying to save lives. And if the Trump haters and the hate listeners, if they can't understand that, well, then they've got to open their eyes a little bit more. They've got to pull their heads out of the sand, because this is all incredibly simple. The Democrats and some of these folks are freaking out on the other side. J.D. Vance had a great conversation with Sean Hannity, and he said, listen, at some point, somebody has to come to the table with a solution.
And here's the thing, when you would talk to the Biden administration officials in private, it's another example of a terrible situation the Biden admin left the Trump administration. When you ask them, what's the plan? Okay, we're going to spend tens of billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars in Ukraine. What is your plan? And they would honestly tell you, well, we're just going to send them weapons for as long as we can and hope eventually they can turn the tide. Hope is not a strategy. Throwing money and ammunition at a terrible conflict, that is not a strategy.
I mean, the phrase meat grinder has been used to describe this war between Russia and Ukraine. And he's right. Whether you're talking about a meat grinder, however you describe this conflict, hope is not a strategy. And by the way, neither is a blank check. And the great thing about this whole conversation, you've got people saying, Donald Trump's not right. We are not sending $350 billion to Ukraine. He's lying. He's fake news. Okay, 175 billion. I don't care what the number is. I don't want to give any more. And if that's the hill that you want to die on, that Trump is talking about 350 versus 175 billion, then your mind is in the wrong space. Remember what Donald Trump wants to do. Sign the minerals deal. Have America invested in Ukraine. Now, that would serve as really a backstop against Russia and their possible military aggression. Because if we're partners with Ukraine, and I'm going to get to some great audio coming up before the news, but if we're partners with Ukraine, say for the minerals, then aren't we going to protect that investment? Of course we are. I've got more on this straight ahead. By the way, the Super Text line is open, 615-737-9996, 615-737-WWTN. Watch us on YouTube, like and subscribe. Do us a favor, throw us a bone. Watch us on YouTube every single morning. Then you get in the car and you listen to us on the radio to Nashville's Morning News. Dan Mandis here, and listen. What are you going to do for home improvement this year? Spring is coming up. After that, it's going to be summer. You know how hot it gets here in Middle Tennessee. Wouldn't you like maybe a tent, maybe some awning, maybe some sort of overhead enclosure to keep you cool this spring and summertime. My friends at Nashville Tent and Awning, they can help you with an incredible enclosure that can be installed anywhere. Now, these folks have been around since 1884. They are a Nashville institution, and they've worked with the likes of the Titans, Vanderbilt, and yes, the Grand Ole Opry as well. They're one of the top companies in Nashville. So I want you to think about your backyard. You can actually extend your living space with the backyard enclosure so that you can enjoy it even when it's really hot outside. You have great shade from my friends at Nashville Tent and Awning. And yes, you can extend your living space with this backyard enclosure. If you've got an event for work coming up, they can also help you there as well with a tent or enclosure. And they've got awnings for any style of building that'll improve the look and feel of your office or home. Get some visuals. Check out their website, NTACO. It's like NTACO, NTACO.com. Call them. Tell them Dan told you to reach out. 615-329-3701. 615-329-3701. NTACO.com. 721 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson coming up at 7:36. And Joan Jones has the news coming up at 7:30. Hey, Joan.
Got to turn the mic on, Joan. Hey, Doge cuts may be aiming at several Nashville offices. And what we know about the approaching weather event that's headed our way today and tomorrow, those stories and more coming up at 7:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
725, Nashville's Morning News. Listen, make 2025 the year that you get active again. If you've been sidelined with chronic back, neck, and knee pain, check out my friends at the Wellness Institute of Nashville and Dr. Kevin Mitchell. Now, I've been a client for over 10 years. I have never felt better. I arrived in Tennessee over a decade ago, and I did go through spinal decompression therapy for my chronic back and neck pain, back, neck, and knee pain, and it really did help me a lot. Every once in a while, I do need an adjustment, but Dr. Mitch, he fixes me right up, and right now, he can do the same thing with you and a great deal. The Wellness Institute of Nashville is offering the Big 47 offer in honor of our 47th president, Donald Trump. 47% off spinal decompression. Now, they utilize the latest high-tech equipment in their state-of-the-art facility to provide effective, non-surgical solutions. Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley, they are committed to helping you overcome back and knee pain. Call them today at 615-246-5009, 615-246-5009. Find them online, painisbad.com. .728, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Man, so much to talk about today.
Yeah, but I think what we really need to talk about is that sweater.
The one I'm wearing?
Yeah, I noticed that somebody on the super text line likened it to the radio guy from Hee Haw and then posted your picture next to it.
Really?
Come on, you saw it.
Well, I think that my sweater actually sadly kind of looks like his.
Oh, yeah, it does.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know what? That's okay because I think that I make it work.
You made it cooler with the baseball cap?
That's exactly what
Got it.
That's exactly what it is.
Okay.
Thank you, though, for clarifying that, Joan.
Yeah. It's my job.
We should, why don't you go ahead and post that to your Facebook page and see if people agree if that I actually make the sweater work.
Yeah, I like that idea.
All right.
It's going to get mean, Dan. Just be mentally ready for that.
You know, I may regret the last 60 seconds of broadcast.
You're expecting, like, this is our fans we're talking. We know these people. They're going to roast you pretty hard.
Yes, as all true fans do. Hey, real quick, CNN has a poll, and I thought this was interesting, just talking about the Russia-Ukraine war. So they did a poll, and Americans on the Russia-Ukraine war. Do you want a quick end to the war? If that would also mean Russia keeping captured land, 50% say yes. 48% say that they support Ukraine's fight, even if it means a longer war. So 48% of Americans polled are okay with this war continuing. Who are those people, and do they really know what's going on?
Yeah.
7:30 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good morning. It is 7:30, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. We're cloudy skies now. We're at 55 degrees. Our high will go up to 70 today, but the weather's going to be an issue. Lots of wind today. We'll also be dealing with some storms. We also have some more government cuts coming our way, and this time it's at Social Security.
The Social Security Administration says it's planning to cut 7,000 jobs and reduce the number of its regional offices from 10 to 4. The agency offering early retirement or voluntary payouts ranging from $15,000 to $25,000 to workers who accept the offer. They have until March 14th to make a decision.
That's ABC's Selena Wang. News 2 reports that Nashville branch of the Social Security Administration on Athens Way appears to be on the list for cutting, according to DOJ's wall of receipts, which says closing the office could save more than $700,000 over 5 years. Other offices that may be in DOJ's crosshairs include the IRS National Office in Franklin and the Natural Resources Conservation Service in Gallatin. We'll get ready here to deal with high winds today, 30 to 40 miles per hour. That'll blow around the trash cans for sure, maybe the patio furniture too. Tonight, we'll be dealing with some heavy thunderstorms with a low threat that they'll turn severe. Here's Channel 4's Stefano DiPietro.
This severe threat has expanded to include much more of Middle Tennessee and southern Kentucky. Mostly a low-end threat, 1 out of 5 on that scale as we get closer to the Tennessee and Alabama border, though the severe threat does go up a little bit, a 2 out of 5 on the scale. Heavy rain and additional high wind gusts are the main concerns. Tornado threat is low, but not necessarily zero.
And tomorrow, another day of high winds. Well, for the first time...
So what you're saying...
Yes.
is that the blowhards aren't going to be at the event tonight. It's
Right.
actually going to be outside.
They'll be outside the event.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our significant others may have some disagreement with that, but we'll
yes,
move on.
Seriously. Hey, for the first time in its history, South Carolina is going to put a condemned prisoner to death by firing squad. 3 people holding rifles about 15 feet away. They'll end Brad Sigmund's life. He was convicted of killing his ex-girlfriend's parents with a baseball bat 24 years ago. State officials say they chose firing squad after a slew of lawsuits over the 3-drug lethal cocktail that had been most commonly used. That is the latest news. We've got your traffic and weather next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News.
Look at Joan, Dan Mandis here. No, my vision has been getting worse for years, and I knew that I needed to make a change. I did all of my required research, and everywhere I looked, I saw that Dr. Horn and Vision for Life was the best in Middle Tennessee. Heck, he's one of the best here in the nation. Now, their reviews are incredible, with many people sharing life-changing stories about their procedures. Dr. Horn has been selected by his peers as one of the best physicians, one of the best eye surgeons, and one of the top 250 premier cataract surgeons in America. And even most recently, he was voted Nashville's best ophthalmologist. So I learned all that. I went and had the surgery, and I got to tell you, friends, it was an amazing experience. But my experience was not unique. By the way, I'm now at 20/20 Vision. He's been helping people see 20/20 for 20 years. And when I talked about how I was going to have Dr. Horn doing my cataract surgery, I had so many people reach out on the socials and say, yes, I also had my vision corrected by Dr. Horn, had a great experience. So if you're thinking about vision correction, call my guy, Dr. Horn at Vision for Life. His phone number is 615-436-2020, 615-436-2020. You can always find more information about Dr. Horn, my guy, at visionforlife.com.
Got a crash in Hamilton Creek at Bell Road north of Couchville Pike. Also in Tusculum, Old Hickory Boulevard at Nolensville Pike, an accident there involving some injuries. And got a crash, too, involving injuries on Murfreesboro Pike at Bell Road. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Vicky Jones, 7:35 on Nashville's Morning News. Listen, that summertime stress, that pre-summertime stress is starting to kick in. How confident are you that you are ready to slide into that bathing suit? Now, if you need help, like so many of us do, check out my friends at Contours of Cool Springs. They are experts in red light technology. Now, they can help you lose a couple of inches of fat in that first session, or it is free. Now, I did the procedure. I did it, and my pants are noticeably looser. And listen, if you don't lose that 2 inches, if you aren't satisfied, that session is free. You know that Contours in Cool Springs, it is the only place in Tennessee with this cutting-edge red light technology. Folks come from everywhere because what Contours offers is unique and effective. See how it works at their website, contoursllc.com. And right now, they're offering you a $99 belly buster special to the first 10 callers. Now, that is normally a $600 value. First 10 callers get it for $99. That number you need to call, 615-236-9960, 615-236-9960. And by the way, Contours will be at our event tonight. Check them out online, contoursllc.com, and get ready for summer. Contoursllc.com. That phone number is 615-236-9960. .737 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Big night tonight out at the Nashville Palace, where all of us, I think everybody's going to be there, at least for the most part. I know Brian Wilson's going to be there. I know I'm going to be there. All the hosts are going to be there. And Brian, I hope you didn't take offense to my little joke about, the wind's going to be blowing hard tonight and this afternoon. But, I made a joke about how the blowhards are really going to be inside the Nashville Palace.
Well, that's what we do, isn't it?
It really is. I was kind of thought that you might say, hey, I resemble that remark. But
no. Listen, there will be a lot of hot air being thrown around. Mainly, I'm coming because you and I may have to hold Matt Murphy down while they go at him with a pair of sheep shears.
Yes.
To get this haircut out of the way. So, I'm there to witness history being made in that regard, at least.
I want to have like a barber cam. They're trying to make it happen so that, we could just...
Yeah, put a GoPro on the actual shears.
Oh, my goodness. That would be so funny and also kind of creepy. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what you expect Donald Trump to do tonight. He's been in office, 5 weeks now, 5 or 6 weeks, whatever it's been.
Here's what I would say. Number one, pop some popcorn and settle in. I just saw the press secretary on Fox say that the speech is going to be about an hour. Well, if they think that what he's going to say is going to take an hour, and then you're going to have applause. You're going to have boos. The Democrats are not going to be on their best behavior. This thing could go 90 minutes or more because he likes to ad lib off the text.
It's the weave, Brian, that he likes to talk about.
Yeah. He likes to weave in and out of the previously approved copy.
Yes, he sure does.
So I expect it's going to be a long affair, and I really do expect that the Democrats, bless their hearts, as we say here in the South, they just can't help themselves. They're going to do what they do, and they're going to fall right into the Donald Trump trap if they do that. I think most Americans are pleased with what's going on. They're pleased with what's happening at the border. They like this talk about cutting government spending and cutting down the size of government in a huge way. That all is resonating very well, and the Democrats are going to be against that kind of thing. And I think that, we're going to see exactly where people are today. Could be, a thing that gives the president more impetus for his policies, because I think the people are going to react badly if the Democrats react badly to this speech.
Here's what I want to see. Donald Trump talking about deporting really bad, murderous, illegal aliens and all that, and the Democrats sitting there like somebody farted in church.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, it's gonna be a real moment where they lay out, the differences between the two sides here. And remarkably, Democrats came out of this shellacking they got in the last election, and they haven't seemed to learn a darn thing. They're just going to go right down the path and do what they do, and they just haven't figured out what this last election was about. Because if they did, they would be handling themselves a lot differently.
Well, and it looks like there's going to be some Democrats that are just not going to show up.
Yeah, and that will be the other story. Empty seats, and we'll see how that turns out.
Well, you know what? For them, because they can't applaud for Trump victories, right? So it is a victory that Trump has been able to deport all of these murderous illegal aliens. And, we got all those, I don't know, I'm sure you saw the story about how we have now, Mexico sent us a bunch of, drug dealers, the guy that killed the DEA agent, if I remember, way back in 1985. So all of these are big-time victories. It is going to be a long night for Democrats.
Yeah.
Because there are things that Trump has done that you would think would be, bipartisan victory, especially getting out again, not to belabor the point, but the murderous illegal aliens. And so that's going to be one of the things that I cannot wait to see. Now, it's a big day news-wise and politically, because we have, of course, the tariffs are taking place today.
Right.
So Trump has announced that. That was announced yesterday. The markets reacted. I've got E.J. Antoni coming up in the next hour, and at 8:06 he's from Heritage and Fox, and he's an economist. So, there's going to be a lot of debate as to what impact these tariffs are going to have. And there's a lot of people that say that the prices are going to go up.
Yeah, I think what you're going to see, it's amazing how people can blink their eyes and find solutions at the very last moment. But you may see a slight increase in this or that, or the price of avocados may go up. And there are going to be some things that, of course, the Democrats will seize upon. See what he's doing? We told you. But you got to play the long game here. And the long game here is that they need us a lot more than we need them, and they're going to be reminded of that fact, and it'll all get worked out. Will there be maybe some short-term spikes and stuff? Yeah, maybe. I wouldn't get too worried about it, because you got to play the long game in this particular regard.
One of the things I thought was interesting before you came on, maybe you were hearing me talk about this, but CNN did a poll. And now consider the source. It is, of course, CNN. But CNN did a poll, and 50% of the American people are for stopping the Ukraine-Russia war right now, even if that meant that Russia keeps their land that they've been able to get over the last several years. 48%, they're perfectly fine with this war going on, seemingly as long as it needs to go on. They support Ukraine in this fight, even if more people die. I was a little surprised by that. Yeah. I wonder if this is this a bipartisan issue?
I think maybe it is. I think you can't apply politics to everything, but in this particular case, Americans. First of all, do they think that it was right that Russia invaded? No, they don't. But they also don't like the idea of just endlessly sending money to Ukraine without any accounting to know exactly what is going on with the money that we send and the resources and the military equipment that we spend. Where is it at? Where is it going? There's this one report that I've seen out there, and I don't know that it's been verified or backed up, but that some of this equipment got resold and money went in people's pockets. If that is true, and I don't know that it is, but if it is true, then that would be a real problem. And Americans don't like to see their money wasted. Well, by and large, Americans don't like to see their money sent overseas.
Well, that's number one. Number two, yes, you're right. There's the story about how it went into other people's pockets. There's also the story about how some of this money or some of the weaponry was sold on the black market, ultimately ended up into the hands of terrorists. And again, I don't know if that's true or not, but if it is, that is obviously abhorrent. It is 7:45. Brian, got to check the roads. Coming up, we're going to do a bit of a deeper dive on Number one, Ukraine and what is going to be next in that whole drama. And number two, there's some drama in Williamson County regarding this conversation regarding primaries versus caucus. We'll talk about that as well. 7:45, time to check the roads on WTN.
There's a crash with emergency crews on the scene. And to Scullum, Old Hickory Boulevard, an accident at Nolensville Pike. I'm Christy O'Brien.
Weather today, a high of 66, and we got a lot of wind and a lot of rain coming. Your complete forecast coming up at 8 right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So, Brian, a couple of things real quick. I don't know, you and I have not spoken since that train wreck of a press conference on Friday.
What a mess that was.
Yeah, so just give me your thoughts.
I happened to be watching it in real time. I was sitting on the couch, and I have actually done what we call a White House spray. Now, the way this is traditionally done is, you go in, a small pool of reporters go in, and it rotates who's on the pool, and they go in, and they first of all, the sound people go in and they go low. And then the camera people come in behind them, and they stand right over the sound people. And then the reporters come in. It's sort of a little dance that you do. And a spray is supposed to be like, okay, the two leaders are talking. You get a little video of them sitting in front of the fireplace. They might say a little something, but you're not really. But that turned into an hour press conference.
Yeah.
where Zelensky could not help himself. And there's a lot of talk that the Democrats had met with him earlier, and got him all wound up to turn down the deal. And he arrived at the White House with having people in his ear and his backup, and the Trump people just weren't having it.
Well,
I've never witnessed anything quite like that event. Where, I think these things happen behind closed doors. It is rare for you to have cameras and it to be live on American television as it's going down.
One of the things, and I did this yesterday, if you missed it, check out the podcast, but I believe there's this conversation about, did Zelensky, to me, people are saying that Trump and J.D. Vance ambushed Zelensky. Yesterday during my show, I played the audio, and it really did seem more like Zelensky ambushed Donald Trump and J.D. Vance because he was very combative. There was a couple of times where he actually felt the need to correct Donald Trump in front of the media, and he thought he was correcting him, but who was right, who knows, but whatever. But that's the whole point, is that Zelensky came in, and I think those Democrats that you were talking about, I think they poisoned the water.
I think they did. And then they come out and criticize it when the deal falls apart. Well, you had, you're behind the scenes manipulating like a puppeteer all of the things to make it fall apart, and then you criticize the president for having made it because it didn't come together. That's dirty pool, and I think the American people are just tired of those kind of games. I really do. I think they've had it.
Yeah.
I think they're ready for something new. I still think that the vast majority of Americans, even those who didn't vote for Donald Trump, there's a fair number of them who are very pleased with some of the things that are going on. And Democrats would be wise to sort of back up and reassess their situation. I mean, how in the world can you be against fraud, waste, and abuse in the federal government? How can you possibly take that position? But they are.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you're a Democrat, I think there's so much Trump derangement syndrome that is infused on the other side.
If Trump is for it, they're going to be against it, and that's ridiculous. And the Democrats need to get over. You really got your butt kicked in the last election, but you know what? You need to learn from that, and I just don't think they're learning at all. I think they're going to be very rude tonight. I really do expect that.
Well, then let them. And we'll see how that turns out,
Yeah,
works
absolutely.
out for them.
Yeah.
Real quick, Brian, Williamson County, I got into this discussion yesterday. So Williamson County, there's a battle within the Republican Party, just real quick. You got one side of the Republican Party, one group that wants to keep primaries in Williamson County. There's another group, the group that is currently in power there in Williamson County, and they're accused of wanting to switch to a caucus format. Right. It's all very controversial in Williamson
baseball,
County.
Very wonky inside baseball.
It is, but you know what? For whatever reason, I find this stuff interesting. So, but you've of course covered caucuses for many years. in Iowa, right? So give me your opinion on caucuses versus primaries.
Well, I've never the caucus thing in Iowa. Of course, I've covered it a couple of times. Well, many times actually, and including this last round. And it is an interesting experience. But I think I lean toward the primary. I think, American politics, the primary just seems to be the more fair way to go about it. And instead of, a small group of people getting together and being swayed by this or that, let the American people have a thoughtful, look at what's happening in the election and then go in and do a primary. Let's do it.
Well, and there's flexibility too.
Yeah, primaries have worked for a long time, and I generally trend toward that.
All right, Brian, as always, thank you very much for joining us here on Nashville's Morning News.
My pleasure. I'll see you tonight.
Yeah, we'll see you tonight. It is tonight, the Nashville Palace. All the hosts. Also, I guess Ken Weaver's going to be there, and KGB is going to be there. Joan's going to be there. So I think most folks here from the radio station are going to be there. So I can't wait to see it. I don't really see my coworkers all that often. So I'm looking forward to seeing Murphy's show, and I'm looking forward to, seeing Chad. And, of course, I see Chris every single day as well. So and I haven't seen Weaves in forever.
Oh, yeah.
Looking forward to seeing everybody there tonight. It all really starts at about 6 or so, but Matt Murphy is going to start broadcasting from the Nashville Palace at 3. And by the way, if you want to get tickets, there are still some tickets available, and you can find those at 997WTN.com. Dan Mandis here, and it is spring rebate madness at Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. Now listen to these rebates. They're always looking for ways to save you money. A mini split 17 SEER or a heat pump 17 SEER, you're going to get an $800 rebate. Heat pumps 15 and 16 SEER, $500 rebate. Duct sealing or repair, $300 rebate. So many ways to save with Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. Some great rebates available to you right now and for the month of March. Now, join the Beehive Club today. You also get a $500 rebate on your spring and fall tune-up, and that means that you've already saved enough money to pay for the Beehive membership for the year. They'll even file the rebates for you so you don't have to. Now, there's a ton of other benefits when you join the Beehive Club. Check them all out at their website. It is busybeehvac.com. I've been a Beehive member for years. It is a great program. Find them online again, busybeehvac.com. Call them. Tell them Dan told you to reach out. 615-775-7833. 615-775-7833. busybeehvac.com. 7:56, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Welcome on in. Somebody on the Super Text line said, hey, could you explain what's going on with Russia and Ukraine? Man, I love you folks so much. I've been doing that all day. Basically, the bottom line is this, is Donald Trump has paused all of that funding that we've been giving for Ukraine because he wants, number one, an apology from Vladimir Zelensky for his abhorrent behavior on Friday in the West Wing, I should say in the Oval Office. And number two, Trump wants to hear from Zelensky, and he wants to hear from Zelensky that he actually wants to stop the war. I mean, that seems to make all the sense in the world. By the way, Joan, somebody actually said I'm the absolute worst at interrupting people. Can I tell you why that happens? Why that happens is because I sensed it too when I was on with Brian. And it's weird because Brian's at home and I'm at the studio. So when I think that he's done, I jump in and then he starts talking again. I think there's a little bit of, I don't know, what do they call that? A little bit of a lag or something. So I'm trying to do the interview and I don't mean to interrupt or step on Brian, and I apologize for that. But I think that we had a great conversation anyway, and I don't like interrupting, and that's not what I was trying to do. We all love Brian. I would never interrupt such a big personality. By the way, a couple of other things just very quickly. Take the Daily Dan poll, watch us, and find us on YouTube at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Just search us, and there we are on YouTube. And one of the things that you can do is take the Daily Dan poll, and you can. And earlier we had a poll. We've been talking about this this morning because of the kerfuffle that has been going on in Williamson County. And you've got two different groups of Republicans. One wants to keep the primaries. The other one is being accused of wanting to switch to a caucus format. Earlier, we took the Daily Dan poll. What do you prefer, a primary versus a caucus? I don't know if I've ever actually met anyone. I should have asked Brian this, but I was too busy interrupting him. I wonder if there's ever been anyone, I mean, even in Iowa, they've talked about getting rid of the caucuses. So is there anyone ever who has actually liked a caucus over primary? I have never.
The inventor of the caucus?
Perhaps, but other than that.
He was like, maybe primaries instead.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never heard somebody say once, I wish we had a caucus, except for these folks possibly in Williamson County.
Have you ever noticed that sometimes it goes from caucus and then the next step is they're doing the tiered ranking?
Oh, Lord have mercy.
So it feels like that's a step toward that, and I would hate that.
Yeah. Now, nobody's talking about that.
Right? No, I know.
Yet. By the way, I'm going to speak to the guy from Elevate. Remember yesterday?
Yes.
He's going to come on. Now, he can only come on. Actually, it's on me. I could only get him on at 8:35. So we're going to have a conversation with this guy at 8:35 during the gang of the crisscross. But, we'll have a conversation with him about, what this group Elevate in Williamson County, these Republicans, do they really want to switch to a caucus? Or is that some rumor or some lie or some slur? We'll have to find out about that from him coming up at 8:35 on Nashville's Morning News on WTN.
Good morning, 8 o'clock now. I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. Watch it. There's a vehicle on fire on I-840 in the eastbound lanes just before Veterans Parkway exit 50. We'll have more on traffic and weather right after the news. Got a wind advisory that's been issued for the Nashville area all the way through 6 o'clock tomorrow night. We're expecting winds that could gust higher than 40, perhaps higher than 50 miles per hour. And then tonight comes the thunderstorms. Right now, Channel 4's Stefano DiPietro tells us these storms could be strong to isolated severe thunderstorms, and they'll arrive just in time for supper.
Between about 3 and 5 o'clock, the storms are developing. They're near the I-65 corridor. corridor, also around dinner time between about 6 and 7 o'clock. Moving into the Cumberland Plateau between 6 and 9 o'clock. Before midnight, most of this will taper off, and we should completely dry things out, at least briefly, for that morning commute tomorrow.
Nashville Electric Service says it does have crews on standby for any power outages caused by these winds and storms today and tonight. NES says it doesn't expect widespread outages, but there could be areas that temporarily lose power. NES reminds everyone to stay at least 30 feet away from any downed power lines. A man from Brentwood is under arrest, charged with threatening to firebomb the federal courthouse in Nashville within the next 2 weeks. 35-year-old Alexander Thompson reportedly made those threats on social media posts and through emails. He was arrested at his workplace in Goodlettsville. And police say when he was arrested, he admitted to making the threats and to his intent to carry out the attack. The federal government is set to run out of money at the end of next Friday, March 14th. Hopes of a full funding deal have faded, so Congress has fallen back on a short-term bill to keep the government open through the end of the fiscal year. However, Politico is reporting senior House Democrats are pushing for a government shutdown. They see it as taking a stand against Elon Musk's efforts to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse in the government. President Trump's 25% tariffs against Canada and Mexico went into effect at midnight. The administration also enacting a 20% tariff on imports from China. Despite the legacy media's alarm, Moody Analytics chief economist Mark Zandi says this is no time to freak out.
Everything from vehicles to appliances to consumer electronics, all those things will take time to filter through. But I suspect by Memorial Day, we will all feel the effects of the higher prices on all these different products.
Now, stay right here. Heritage Foundation economist E.J. Antonio is joining Dan on how these tariffs make that E.J. Antoni. Yeah, he'll join Dan on how these tariffs are going to affect the U.S. coming up at 8:06. Money News brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com. Well, looks like the futures this morning suggest that we'll have a lower open again after a big sell-off yesterday. Dow futures are down 105. NASDAQ futures minus 124. S&P futures are minus 35 points. That's the latest news. We've got traffic and weather next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News. There's a vehicle on fire on I-840, the eastbound lanes, just before Veterans Parkway. It's in the right lane. It's blocked off there, and it's causing a big backup as well. Also, on the West Loop, I-40 eastbound before I-65 West. Watch for a crash there. And in Madison, Conference Drive at Gallatin Pike, it's all backed up for a crash in that area as well. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
8:06, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 89.7 WTN. And welcome on in to Nashville's Morning News. Dan Mandis here, and Donald Trump yesterday announcing that those tariffs will begin, of course, on Canada and Mexico and China. Those do begin today.
But very importantly, tomorrow tariffs 25% on Canada and 25% on Mexico, and that'll start. So they're going to have a tariff. So what they have to do is build their car plants, frankly, and other things in the United States, in which case they have no tariffs. I would just say this to people in Canada or Mexico: if they're going to build car plants, the people that are doing them are much better off building here, because we have the market. We're the market where they sell the most.
E.J. Antoni is joining us. He is, of course, the economist for the Heritage Foundation. You've seen him on Fox News as well. E.J., always great to have you on. So there's a lot of course, hand-wringing. The markets reacted yesterday. A lot of folks saying, well, this is going to cause prices to go up. Some people are saying it's only going to be a temporary rise. It's only going to be on some products. Give me your first flash take on these tariffs.
Well, I think people need to remember that there are no hard and fast rules when it comes to tariffs. In other words, don't listen to the people who say tariffs are always and everywhere bad, but also don't listen to the people who say tariffs are always and everywhere good. Look, there's a right way and a wrong way to implement these things. There's a right time and a wrong time. You know, most infamous probably was Herbert Hoover. The tariffs that he implemented essentially helped worsen the Great Depression in the early 1930s. Conversely, when McKinley did it, he did it expertly well, and it helped, I think, make America's golden age even more golden, even better than it already was at that time. So again, there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. Fortunately, it seems like what Trump is doing is a much more scientific approach than Hoover, and much more closely resembles what McKinley did. So I think the effects will be much better.
So he said a number of different things, as I've been mentioning. 25% tariffs on China. No, 20% is China, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong. You've got 25% on Mexico and Canada. And these also got reciprocal tariffs on any country that has tariffs against us. It's going to be reciprocal against them. So it does seem like there is a lot that he has sort of thought out here. Also, of course, by the way, we have seen these tariffs have an impact in the sense that we are now seeing Apple was one. This chips manufacturer is another one from Taiwan that was announced yesterday. There are companies that are moving here and opening up plants and manufacturing here to avoid these tariffs. So it does seem like they are having a positive impact.
Oh, absolutely. And let's not forget, this is part of the carrot and stick approach that Trump is using to return manufacturing to the United States, so that things will be made in America, and we will be employing more Americans. So obviously, tariffs are the stick. What's the carrot? Well, he intends to reduce the tax and regulatory burden on American businesses, on American manufacturers specifically. He intends to reduce that burden so low that it provides a tremendous incentive to re-onshore manufacturing, to reverse that corporate inversion where people want to send their factories and send American jobs overseas. The other thing to remember is that things like these 25% tariff rates on Canada, for example, that's not being pulled out of thin air. If you look at both the tariffs and non-tariff barriers, so that would include things like quotas, both the tariff and non-tariff barriers that Canada puts on American exports to Canada, whether it's dairy products or automotive parts, whatever the case may be, the average there is about 25%. And so don't forget that Trump loves to do more than one thing at once. He is simultaneously putting on a tariff that is approximating reciprocity, and he's also putting on a tariff to say to Canada, look, you need to do more to help us with the trade deficit. You need to do more to help us with the fentanyl crisis, et cetera. Trump is taking a very multifaceted approach, even if he's using only one single tool to achieve multiple ends.
Talk a little bit about the trade imbalance that we have with Canada and with Mexico. Why is there such an imbalance? Is it just that Canada simply doesn't need as much from us as we need from them, or how does that whole thing work?
Well, it works a couple of different ways, not the least of which is the fact that, again, Canada penalizes American exports in a whole host of different ways, which we don't do to them. The other thing is that Canada has been allowing China to essentially abuse the USMCA, the United States Mexico-Canada trade agreement. And what they're doing is essentially allowing these Chinese companies to set up shop in Canada, pretend they are Canadian firms, and thereby get in on the trade deal in the USMCA, when in fact it is really all Chinese products, right? These are Chinese manufactured goods. Half the time, they're not even actually being made in Canada. It's literally just being imported to Canada from China and then repackaged and resold here in the U.S. So it's a flagrant abuse of the trade agreement that we have with Canada. Canada has been made aware of it, and they have done absolutely nothing to police it because China is allowing them to skim a little off the top. So China's making out like a bandit. They're getting around the different trade penalties we've put in place on them. And Canada is doing just fine on it because they're getting paid on the deal.
E.J. Antoni, economist for the Heritage Foundation. Also, you've seen him on Fox News. E.J., the other thing that I think is interesting about all of this is you were talking about the carrot and the stick and having companies move here. Talk about, and again, just the two big that have come out in the last couple of weeks. You did have Apple, a $500 billion investment. We also have this chip manufacturer. I don't remember right offhand how much that was as far as an investment goes. $100 billion, maybe that's what it was. But talk about the economic impact of those corporations coming to America and the impact of those jobs and those jobs and that investment in America.
Well, I think anyone who has driven through much of what used to be the industrial belt, what we now call the Rust Belt, sees the impact of corporations moving overseas, has seen the impact of factories moving overseas, has seen the impact of American jobs being sent overseas. And so this is going to have exactly the opposite effect. Instead of those businesses closing up shop in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Kentucky, you name it, all these different areas, instead of closing up shop there and opening factories in Mexico or other places around the world, we're going to see exactly the opposite. We're going to see those factories move back to America because of this investment. Investment is basically just another way of saying, look, these firms are going to take money and they're going to use it to build plants, to build equipment here in the United States so that they can employ Americans. This is a good thing for the American economy in the long term.
And that actually, I mean, that expands our tax base too, right? Because you've got now people that are going to be working. Maybe there's folks that haven't worked in a long time, the Rust Belt, right? And so that means that more people are working, and that means more a bigger tax base for our government to draw taxes from.
Absolutely. It's funny you mention this. This is actually one of the things that J.D. Vance touches on, at least briefly, in his book Hillbilly Elegy, where you have essentially not only a hollowing out of America's industrial base, but at the same time you lose the revenue from the corporations, and you also lose the personal income tax revenue from people who are no longer employed, and it is replaced by people living on the dole. So instead of me working and earning money and paying a portion of that money to the government in tax receipts, I now have the government as my source of income, and so I went from being a payer into the system to essentially only a taker. And now you have exacerbated not only America's trade deficit, but America's federal deficit as well, both of which we need to get down today. And so, again, re-onshoring manufacturing and bringing jobs back to America is going to help reverse all of that, reducing both the trade deficit and the federal deficit at the same time.
E.J., got a couple more questions for you. Got to check the roads, though, very quickly here on WTN.
Gallatin Pike into Scullum, Old Hickory Boulevard, a crash at Nolensville Pike. Watch for emergency crews on the scene. I'm Christy O'Brien.
Weather today, a high of 66, a lot of wind, a lot of rain, and a slight possibility of some severe weather. Keep it here. Your full forecast is coming up at 8:30 on WTN. Dan Mandis here with economist for the Heritage Foundation, E.J. Antoni, also Fox News. So, E.J., I think that what Donald Trump is trying to do, you'd mentioned earlier that the president likes to do multiple things at once. And I think that, and I sort of described it earlier, it feels like he's got this cauldron of economic policy that he's trying to do, right? So he's trying to implement tariffs. That means that if a company decides that they're going to stay in whatever country they're in, then we'll get will end up getting some revenue from those tariffs. He wants to bring jobs here. That, of course, expands the tax base. And if you open up a plant in, someplace in Kansas or Arizona, then you have the domino effect. Then that means that local businesses are also going to see people spending more money and so forth. He's trying to save money through USAID. In other words, and he wants to extend the Trump tax cuts. So there's a lot of things that he's got in his cauldron of economic policy. How do you think this whole thing is going to end up?
I think very well, frankly. One of the things that Trump and a lot of his team members have been focusing on is that we can use the revenue from tariffs to essentially replace lost revenue in terms of the income tax. And you might say, well, why would we be losing revenue for the income tax? Because we want to keep pushing those rates lower and lower. Let's not forget that during America's golden age, which was our fastest period of sustained economic growth, during that time, the nation didn't even have an income tax. The Supreme Court had actually ruled it unconstitutional. We had to later change the Constitution, unfortunately, in order to even implement the income tax. And so how did the government fund itself? It was financed almost entirely by tariff revenue. And so this idea that somehow implementing tariffs is going to cause tax revenue to collapse and it's going to cause the economy to collapse, I'm sorry, but neither economic theory nor the record of history support that idea. Again, if you look at our fastest period of sustained economic growth, that was when we didn't even have an income tax. All we had was tariff revenue, essentially, to fund the government.
Well, and you mentioned earlier, and I'll go ahead and in that cauldron of economic policies, also there is the deregulation, which is something that he did very successfully in his first term. In our minute or so that's remaining, EJ, what is Donald Trump, or what, in your opinion, should Donald Trump focus on as he speaks to basically it is the State of the Union, if you will? And what's his message to the American people as far as the economy goes?
I think it would be very good if the president would simultaneously recognize just what terrible shape we are in today, that we have, for example, the most unaffordable housing we have ever had. That's not according to me. That's according to the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, their national home affordability index. It's at its lowest level ever today. So simultaneously recognize how bad things are today, but walk that tightrope where you can also say that, look, there is hope. We are going to move to a better place, and here's how I intend to get us there.
All right, EJ, always great to have you on. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of week. It is 8:19 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. The Super Text line is open, 615-737-9986. Guys, if you're feeling tired, maybe the motivation just isn't there, maybe some weight gain and muscle loss, well, these could all be signs of low testosterone. And it's time that you found out for sure with my friends at Low T Center. Now, they make it easy to get your levels checked. It is just a simple test, and they have an on-site lab, and you can get your results back immediately with Low T Center. Now, this isn't your typical doctor's office. They simply specialize in treating low T with testosterone replacement therapy. We like to call it TRT for each individual patient. Now, they've been helping patients for over a decade, and their treatment plans, they're optimized for each, again, individual patient. It's personalized just for you. There's nothing standard about Low T Center. Everything is customized just for you. So again, if you feel tired, motivation isn't there, maybe you're gaining some weight, you've got some muscle loss, these folks can help you figure out what in the world is going on. At Low T Center, you can also, by the way, get your health evaluated for treatment with prescription GLP-1 weight loss medications. So get back to your best. Go to lowtcenter.com and book your appointment today. That's lowtcenter.com. Low T Center, reinventing men's health care. 8:21 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7. Joan Jones has the news at 8:30. Joan.
Yeah, coming up here at 8:30, Dan, a gruesome hit and run that police need help solving. Also, we'll take a look at stock trading right after the opening bell here, if we can even stand to look at the stock market at this point. Those stories and more coming up at 8:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
O'Brien.
825 Nashville's Morning News on WTN. DT McCall's, listen. Right now, they've got gun safes that are sales tax free at DT McCall's. I love this. There are so many reasons why they are the largest Liberty Safe dealer in the state of Tennessee. Number one, these are great safes. Number two, free delivery and free setup from DT McCall's. Other places, they're going to charge you $500 at least for delivery and setup in bigger models, $300 for smaller models. DT McCall & Sons, they deliver every safe for free every time, period, and no setup charge. So check them out today. Save some big bucks right now on your Liberty gun safe when you shop at your local DT McCall's. They've got 5 locations across Middle Tennessee. Be sure and tell them Dan Mandis told you to reach out. Carthage, Cookeville, Lebanon, Lafayette, Franklin, always online, dtmccalls.com. $826, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Appreciate you being here. Man, you know, it's interesting that there's so many different things going on. There's a story that I haven't even gotten to today. Real quick, this is the headline. Trump administration promises to be ruthlessly aggressive in response to suspected cartel killing of U.S. citizen. This was actually a story that I had yesterday that I didn't get to. But, I mean, the cartels, and you know that the president is basically telling the Defense Department and the Pentagon, listen, if you want to go after these cartels, then you go right on ahead and you do what you need to do. You don't necessarily need my permission. And so that is part of what the president may be talking about tonight. They say in response to the killing of an elderly South Texas rancher and a U.S. citizen by a suspected cartel explosive, the Trump administration is promising to continue being ruthlessly aggressive in responding to cartel threats to Americans. After 74-year-old U.S. citizen Antonio Cepidas Saladementria was killed in the blast, and I shanked that. National Security Council spokesperson Brian Hughes telling Fox News Digital that the administration will be relentless in working to fully secure the border. And that's obviously what Donald Trump needs to do. And I think that's a great point. You know, Brian and I were talking about the Democrats and what they're not going to cheer for today, what they're not going to applaud for. Because if Trump is going to go for an hour, then number one, that's even more time that we can all hang out together tonight at the Nashville Palace. But that's number one. But number two is if Trump is going to go for an hour, there will be, because he does have a lot to be proud of, and he's accomplished a lot in the first 5 weeks or so. But I can't imagine, Joan, can you imagine a time where Donald Trump is going to talk about taking care of the cartels and treating them like the terrorist organizations that they are and deporting murderous illegal aliens who've been raping, children and so forth, which is what they've been doing? Can you imagine the Democrats not getting up and applauding for that?
Oh, yes, I can. You remember the moment that Nancy Pelosi stood up and tore apart President Trump's speech. I mean, I don't think the guardrails are off in Washington, D.C.
I think what they need to do is they need to set like applause traps, like where Trump says something that clearly the American people approve of.
Yeah.
And watch the Democrats not applaud, whatever it might be.
And then President Trump needs to say, do you realize they're not applauding for this?
Oh, that's what he does. He needs to totally, that's a great point, out. Joan. I mean, we'll call them out, of course, the conservatives that we are, but that's a great point. Can't believe they're not, I can't do a Trump. I've never been able to do a Trump voice, but I can't believe they're not.
Get your hands up here like this.
Yeah. I can't believe they're not applauding that. Democrats, sheesh. Anyway, got a lot more straight ahead. Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good morning. It's 8:30 now. I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. They've moved that car fire on 840 eastbound off to the right shoulder now, but it is stop and go from Almaville Road exit 47 up to exit 50 at Veterans Parkway because of it. We'll have more in traffic and weather right after the news. Well, the search is on for a dark-colored Toyota Tacoma truck involved in a hit-and-run last night. Metro Nashville police saying that a man was seen riding a scooter along the shoulder of Old Hickory Boulevard last night near I-24.
At some point, he attempted to cross the road and was hit by the driver of a Toyota Tacoma. Witnesses reportedly told officers the impact of the crash caused sparks to fly and the man and scooter to be dragged more than 900 feet before coming off.
That's Channel 4's Jordan James. Now, the man was killed and the truck drove away toward Murfreesboro Pike. Anyone with information is asked to call police. A trade war now underway now that the president's trade tariffs on Canada and Mexico are in effect. It's 20% on China, too. We're already getting a response from Canada.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford now threatening to shut off electricity to American homes near the border who rely on Canadian power. But Trump says the tariffs are needed. He says the U.S. is getting ripped off by bad trade deals that cost American jobs. And he claims Canada and Mexico aren't doing enough to stop illegal immigration and fentanyl shipments. Less than 1% of the fentanyl in the U.S. comes across the Canadian border.
That's ABC's Andrew Dimbert. The Supreme Court is hearing arguments this morning over Mexico's charges that American gun makers should be held liable for an epidemic of gun violence south of the border.
The government of Mexico is seeking $10 billion in damages from American gun makers. The companies say they are immune from suit under federal law. The justices will decide whether the case can move forward under an exception. It's the first time the court has ever considered immunity for American gun manufacturers.
ABC's Devin Dwyer there. Money News brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com. Now, this is just moments after the opening bell, but things are in the red already this morning after yesterday's big sell-off. We've got the Dow down at the moment, 328 points, NASDAQ falling 195, and the S&P 500 index is minus 54 points. That's the latest news. We've got traffic and weather next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News.
Thank you, Joan. 832. Dan Mandis here with a question for you. If your roof was destroyed in a storm, how much of that replacement cost would your insurance cover? Now, if you don't know, you really do need to ask, because some insurance companies, they'll refuse to pay full replacement cost. They're going to deduct money for an older roof, and this means that the insurance company will depreciate how much they pay for your roof claim. If you've got an older roof, they're going to pay you less, and that could leave you on the hook for thousands of dollars. Now, my friends at King & Associates Insurance, they will pay full replacement cost. So whether you have to replace a 10-year-old roof or a 2-year-old roof, they will pay for it to be replaced, period. It is that kind of focus on customer service that not only are they famous for, but it is what sets them apart. They are one of the best insurance companies around. King & Associates Insurance. Call them, tell them Dan Mandis told you to reach out at 615-329-8121. 615-329-8121. Get your royal review, tkinginsurance.com.
Okay, looks like we've got that car fire. It's an earlier car fire on 840, the eastbound lanes before Veterans Parkway, exit 50. It's now on the shoulder, but still stop and go all the way up to that spot this morning. Antioch, a crash on Bell Road at Hickory Hollow Parkway, and in Madison, Conference Drive at Gallatin Pike North, the scene of another crash. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Vic Joe, 836, Nashville's Morning News. Listen, friends, if you're thinking of popping the question, let me help you take the stress out of selecting the perfect engagement ring. My friends at Brentwood Jewelry, they are here to help you. They can help you find a beautiful ring in your ideal budget. So you can browse their incredible selection of one-of-a-kind rings or talk with their customer design specialist to create a stunning ring as remarkable as your loved one. Now, only 1 in 4 men involves their partner when purchasing an engagement ring, and nearly a third of women say they want to help in the selection. So take them along. Go to Brentwood Jewelry and pick out the absolute perfect ring. This is My Jewelry Store, 7012 Church Street East, located in the heart of Brentwood, just off Franklin Road. Tell him Dan told you to reach out. Exceptional style, exceptional deals every day for over 50 years. BrentwoodJewelry.com. .837, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk, 99.7 WTN. Welcome on in. Hope you're doing well. Now, usually this is where we do the crisscross. However, we've got a very important guest we want to get to very quickly. Steve Hickey is joining us. And Steve, I appreciate you being with us. As you know, there's been some conversation here on WTN about what is going on in the Williamson County Republican Party. Now, yesterday, as you may or may not know, I had a guy named Brian Clifford on. He is with the Williamson County Conservatives, and he is running for chairman for the Williamson County Republican Party. You are his opponent. And yes, so there's been a lot of conversation about whether or not your group called Elevate, I just want to cut right to the chase. Your group Elevate is being accused of wanting to implement a caucus system as opposed to what you folks usually do right now, currently the primary system in Williamson County. So let's talk about this real quick because the vote is tonight, right? So all of this is going to be going down tonight, and your slate of people that are running, you're being accused of supporting this caucus format. So you tell me, are you or are you not?
Well, we're talking about an issue called crossover voting, and it's where Democrats vote in Republican primaries to elect people that they would prefer rather than people that Republicans would prefer. So if you would, let me just back up and talk a little bit about that. I'm going to read a post from Williamson Strong, a leftist group from April 12th of 2022. As a reminder, you can choose to vote in whichever primary you'd like. We don't register in Tennessee as Republicans or Democrat. And then a comment later on says, I'm thinking for strategy, I might choose the Republican ballot since you don't have to declare and choose the least repulsive Republican and then vote for in the regular election back to voting for Democrats. So that was Williamson Strong. They made 3 other posts like that. And crossover voting is a problem, and it did affect the 2022 county primary. We had 2 candidates, Chris Richards in District 7 County Commission race, and Ali Adair, who's actually the first vice chair for my opponent's slate in the District 10 school board race. Chris Richards lost his race by 11 votes in a primary where you had 228 voters who had voted in at least one of the previous 4 Democrat primaries, 78 in the previous 2, and 47 in the previous 3.
Well, Steve, I don't mean to cut you off. I don't have a lot of time, but I get what you're saying. But let's be honest, Williamson County, that is hardcore red, man. You guys got a lot of Republicans there.
In Chris Richards' race, a quarter of the votes came from Democrat crossover voters. So here's what the county party has done to try to address this issue. Last year, during the presidential primary, afterward, they noticed that 4,000 people who had voted in previous Democrat primaries had voted in that presidential primary. So the county party 5 of whom are going to be on my board. They sent out a mailer to all 4,000 of those crossover voters, letting them know, hey, if you intend to affiliate with the Republican Party, this is how you can do it. If that wasn't your intent, then you need to be aware that you might be breaking the law. And it is a violation of Tennessee code to vote in a primary for a party to which you do not hold allegiance. So they did that. They got a lot of hate mail back, and they actually wound up reducing crossover voting by 43% in the follow-up August primary. Now, what we did earlier this month, or at the beginning of February, I asked the board if they would sponsor a resolution calling on our state legislature to pass party registration legislation. What this would do is it would require people to register well ahead of an election for one party or the other, and then lock them into that choice for a period of time so you can't ping pong back and forth.
Right.
We believe that is the best way to address this crossover voting issue. But Dan, I think we need to be concerned about how we're disenfranchising Republican voters, conservative voters, by allowing Democrats to vote in our primaries. We have to stop that, and my team is committed to doing that. We're trying to get the legislature to take action. There's a House bill and a Senate bill currently in committee. We call on the legislature to please do their job and once and for all stop this crossover voting by closing our primaries.
And listen, I actually agree on closed primaries. I do. My question for you, though, this is not anywhere on, as far as I can tell, on the state legislature's radar. Maybe it is, but the question is, if they don't do that, then will you call for a caucus format if you end up being the chairman for the Williamson County Republicans? It says it's a yes or no.
So we have not made any decision at this point because House Bill 1159 and Senate Bill 0831 are currently in committee. Please let the legislature do their job. That's what we're calling on them to do. Now, people want to know, well, what if they don't? Well, I can't answer that question at this point because that's a hypothetical that we have to let the legislature do their job. If they don't do their job, do we go ahead and try to get our DA to finally enforce the law? You know, I've got a couple examples that I think the DA should look at and see if they'll finally once and for all enforce the law as it's written.
Well, and Steve, I appreciate all that. Mm-hmm. Let's just say that nobody does anything. Nobody does anything about voter registration, and nobody does anything about closing the primaries, and you end up being the chairman, and your slate end up being in charge of the board, and you're the chairman. If you win tonight, will you, if nothing else goes your way, will you try to implement a caucus format?
We favor allowing the legislature to do their job. We're calling on the legislature to do their job. But we will do what we need to do in order to protect the integrity of our elections in Williamson County.
Okay, but what does that mean? Like, I need to know what that means. Are you going to try to implement a caucus format in Williamson County if you and your slate of candidates win? I understand you guys have a great conversation to have. I'm just trying to figure out what your intentions are.
I've explained the issue. We've articulated what we have done to try to address the issue, and we will not take anything off the table because we want to protect the integrity of our elections here in Williamson County. And I call on our opponents who have a throwaway line on their website that they believe that only Republicans should vote in Republican primaries. What's their plan? You know, we've actually taken concrete steps to address this issue, and we're getting beaten up because we're taking a stand that we respect Republican voters, and we want Republican voters to determine who their nominees are in the general election.
Okay, so what are your intentions if nobody does what you want them to do with registration? I'm going to ask again, or closing the primaries. What is your intention?
Our intention is to do whatever the law allows us to do. Okay? So we want to protect the integrity of our elections. All right? We would prefer if the legislature would finally, once and for all, close our primaries.
Okay.
So that's where we are.
How do you intend to protect the integrity of the elections?
We intend to make it so that no Democrats are voting in our primaries.
Okay. Let me take this another way. Guy by the name of, is it Tim Raynaud? Is part of the Elevate slate of candidates. He currently is the assistant treasurer for the Williamson County Republican Party. He posted on Facebook, it was eventually deleted, but a lot of people sent this to me, where he did seem to make the case, and this is a guy that's on your slate. He seemed to make the case that caucuses are the way to go because of some irregularities that he posted about on the first day of early voting. I guess it was last time around. And it was in the comments. And basically, he said that we really need to start talking about caucuses. Gary Humble is a big supporter of your slate of candidates, also a very powerful guy, head of Tennessee Stands. And he posted back on February 12th that caucus is not a dirty word. So there's a lot of indications that people within your slate or people that are supporting your slate want to talk about and implement a caucus. And please understand, you have a legit argument for wanting to implement a caucus. And your opponent has a legit argument for wanting to maintain a primary. What I'm trying to get from you is what are your intentions? Because it sounds to me like people within your orbit want to have a caucus.
We will have that discussion if we have to have it. Okay? No decision has been made. That's what people need to understand.
Do you understand? Do you understand though, Steve Hickey? Do you understand though that why people are a little suspicious as to your intentions, because you're not answering the questions? I mean, I would understand.
I've answered the questions, and I've told you that right now we have not.
Steve, you have not answered the question. You have not answered the question. You mean to tell me that right now on March 4th, with the election down there in Williamson County that is supposed to be tonight, that you and your slate and your supporters don't have a plan regarding whether or not you're going to try to implement a caucus if the state lawmakers don't close the primaries or don't do anything with voter registration?
Why haven't we put more pressure on our state lawmakers to do something about this?
I'm asking you, Steve. I'm talking about you. I'm not talking about the state legislatures. I'm asking you. It's a very simple question, and I don't want to. I hate this, but I just want to know why won't you answer the number one? Why won't you answer the question? And number two, there is a legit problem in Williamson County. That is also a legit conversation. But my purpose of having you on now, because I'm going to tell you, Steve, I got a ration of crap from people because I covered this topic yesterday. And it was portrayed as you guys are being accused of wanting to implement a caucus when you don't. Well, from what I'm hearing, I understand why there's a lot of confusion, because you're not telling me a yes or no answer. And so it seems like you're trying to obfuscate the truth here.
No, I'm not trying to obfuscate anything. What I am trying to do is say that we are committed to protecting the integrity of our elections here in Williamson County.
You have a statement. Okay, Steve, we've heard that. You have a statement on your group Facebook page that says that you advocate for closed primaries, but if the state legislature does not do their job, then Williamson County must do what 20 other counties have done. What exactly does that refer to? What are those 20 other counties doing?
They are doing what is called a convention.
Okay.
A nomination convention.
And and tell me what that is.
Well, that's where you have your bona fide, your Republicans who have voted in 3 out of the last 4 primaries. They come in and they are allowed to select the nominees for the party in the general election.
Okay. So your website states that you have increased membership by 68%, donations by 62%. Williamson County, of course, remains very red. So I got to ask, with this success, would it be wise to move to a caucus system with all the success that you folks are bragging about? And that's all great. I love those numbers. Would it be wise to move to a caucus system?
This is a discussion that we need to have with the Republican membership of the Republican Party in Williamson County. As I've said, we would prefer if the legislature would simply do their job and enact party registration.
Well, hey Steve, can I ask a question? Because I know about the state legislatures. You're co-chair for the Williamson County Military and Veterans Subcommittee. So right now, Elevate, which is the company which is the organization that you belong to, you folks are in charge of the Republican Party in Williamson County. So for the last couple of years, so have you had those discussions?
I'm not part of the board now. To my knowledge, I don't believe the board has.
Well, I guess that would be a problem, because if that's a legit conversation to have and the conversation hasn't happened in the last couple of years and you're part of this organization, then I guess my question would be, what have you been waiting for? Not you, but I mean the board, and you're part of this whole thing. Then why haven't you folks had that conversation in the last couple of years?
Well, what we've been trying to do is we've been trying to highlight the problem. Like I said, we conducted a education mailer last year, or the board conducted an education mailer last year to inform 4,000 voters that they might be breaking the law. And we've put a resolution forward to the state legislature, imploring them to pass party registration legislation this session. So, we have taken steps to try to address this problem.
Yeah. Do you understand why people are not sure of your intentions?
I think we've been very clear that our intent is to protect the integrity of our elections, and we will exhaust every avenue possible to do that.
Okay. Can I ask one more question? How come you haven't been doing any media? Like Channel 5 was asking you folks about this, and you referred them to the website. I asked you folks to come on over the weekend, and I got a form letter saying that you were directly engaging the folks of Williamson County. I know that I have a lot of listeners in Williamson County. So is there a reason why you haven't been doing a lot of media?
Well, to be perfectly frank, one of the first things they teach you in Fighter Pilot 101 is don't stick your nose in a fight where you're going to be defensive at the outset. So on Friday, an article came out on Tennessee Star that was very biased and obviously written with our opponents' talking points in mind. Looks like they're suppressing comments on it. I've got 4 people who've tried to post comments critical, and they haven't made it through. The Channel 5 question came in, and then your question came in. It became apparent that our opponents were leveraging their connections with Nashville media to try to bring some pressure on.
Well, Steve, with all due respect, and I appreciate your service, and I hate fighting, but when I saw this, when I saw the article from Channel 5, I immediately reached out to Brian Clifford, and he was willing to come on, but you folks weren't. I don't have an agenda in this. I've said 1,000 times to the point where my audience is sick of it. But I accept. No, hold on. I accept the fact that there could be a legit argument to be made for a caucus format. I also accept that there's a legitimate argument to be made regarding sticking with the primary. So I didn't come in here with any preconceived notions or bias. But now I'm trying to find out from you folks, what are your intentions if the state legislature doesn't close the primaries and they don't do anything with voter registration?
And I've told you, we are going to exhaust every avenue possible to ensure the integrity of our elections. Okay.
Okay. Well, Steve, I don't know what else to say. That's not an answer. So, but listen, I appreciate it. I get it. I want to wish you the best of luck tonight, and we'll see how the election goes.
All right. Thank you for your time, Dan.
All right. Bye-bye. I'm exhausted.
I'm exhausted just listening to you.
Is it me? Like, was he not answering the question?
He was not.
Okay. So Chris, was he not answering the question?
I don't think he was answering the question, no.
I asked it like 15 different times.
And in different ways. Congratulations on the creativity.
Whatever.
Creativity was through the roof.
Yeah.
Was it through the roof? Do I at least get that?
It was.
Very good. And again, I was trying to be nice. I didn't want to yell at him. I think I may have gotten a little frustrated, but just because I kept asking the same question, and I just wanted to know: are you going to is it your intention to implement a caucus and we're going to preserve the integrity of the vote? Well, what does that mean? Whatever.
I think you.
I already know that there are people that are lighting me up on the socials. I'm getting hate mail from people. The super text line. You're on the super text line. I know that I'm getting just.
It's pretty split.
Is it pretty split?
It's pretty split. But I mean, there were people tweeting you before the interview was even over.
Oh, what were they saying? Mad as you, Rhino.
You're a traitor to grassroots conservatives all over Tennessee.
There you go. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
All right, very good.
How dare you ask a question?
Wait, what are you saying, KGB? We got to go?
We got to go to break, yes.
Oh, okay, very good.
Oh, there's that.
There is that. I want to tell you about my friends at Save It. You know what? Why don't you take some calls on this, Chris? I'm sure it'll be thrilling. 8:56, Nashville's Morning News. Dan Mandis here. You know, for me, my backyard is my oasis. I bet a lot of you folks feel the same way, which is why I am so glad that Save a Tree came into my life. SAVATREE, Save a Tree. They can help your trees, your bushes, your plants, and your shrubs look amazing. If they're sick, Save a Tree can nurse them back to health. If they don't look right, Save a Tree can make them look incredible with proper pruning. Now, they came over to my house, and I told them my issues with my plants and my shrubs, and they gave me some great suggestions on how to fix my crepe myrtles and my shrubs as well. Now, these folks, they're actual arborists who can do wonders for your front or your backyard. Find them online, saveatree.com, SAVATREE, saveatree.com, or simply dial pound 250 on your smart device and say the keyword Save a Tree. That's pound 250, keyword Save a Tree.